diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gotta be biblical.
Excellent. Welcome to Patriots Across the Pond, our regular Thursday show. We don't normally have guests on this one, but Elisa and I have been waffling on so much this week. It's really good to get two of our absolute favourites on. Amazing guests. Now, I've been watching Paul and John for a couple of years now, and I've recently given Elisa some of your older stuff to have a little binge on. She's just having a little catch up with that at the moment, but it's absolutely brilliant. So we've been... What I always do, if people come up to me and say, "Oh, hang on, I haven't shared my screen yet," that's is when people come up and say, "Oh, Stu, I think you might be right about that Q stuff," and the people that also want to delve a bit deeper, I always put them onto your 7-parter you did with Kaiti a couple of years ago and expand your thinking. If anyone learn our comms, it's such a good thing to watch, and I want to congratulate you guys because so far you have sent in the best picture we could use for any thumbnail to date. So yeah, that's excellent. So today's episode is called remove.
Looks like John disappeared.
Yeah,
there
sorry.
Okay.
Today's episode is called Expand Your Thinking. What do you really know? So welcome, John and Paul, ANON and SAPIOPLEX. Great to see you guys.
Good to be on.
Have you guys here?
Yeah, thanks, Elisa. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Hello to everybody in the UK that's watching for sure. I lived there for 3 years in the mid '90s and worked near Leicestershire in Loughborough actually, and I miss it. I miss what it was. I was telling Stu pre-show. I'm like, I'm not sure that's possible to go back to that because I think it's changed so much. But I know there's a lot of English patriots out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you got yourself a little cottage up in the Highlands or the Lake District or somewhere like that, you might be far enough away from it to try and live a normal life with all the insanity going on. But yeah, I think we're going to move back to that anyway. I personally believe that there will be a lot of, if Nasara as well, and whatever's happening, and no war in all these countries, and all these countries are going to be rebuilt. I think there's going to be a lot of self-deportation anyway, and who wouldn't want to be in their country of origin if you didn't have a dictator in office, or you weren't getting told to wear a burqa, or anything like that.
Yeah, I can't. It's astonishing to me the amount of control, the amount of draconian stuff that's happening in the UK with the free speech and I just saw a British teacher at I don't know if it was a primary school, but he wanted to have he had a chess club, and then he's now being disciplined for it because chess is forbidden apparently by some Muslims. I mean,
racist.
Wow.
It's crazy, isn't it? Keir Starmer is our Joe Biden. We are going through the pause here to wake people up. And the worse it gets, the more I laugh. Come on, people.
Yeah. It blows me away, but what I'm excited about, or what makes me happy, is when I see people like Tommy Robinson and all of these young men. There's been recent posts about these young guys getting together in parks for fitness and all of this, and that makes me happy, man, because I see like that's the British Lion, that's the Brits. Those are the Brits I know, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we've been out marching on the street many times, and the first rally we went to in 2020, Trafalgar Square, standing up against the masks and the jabs and all these things and the lockdowns. 45,000 of us. The BBC said there was a few hundred of us, and there's police steamed in and stuff. There was a lot of more stuff going on there. And then in 2021, we were all up there. There was 2 million of us walking around the streets again. BBC said there was a couple of thousand people there. The thing is with that is if the people sitting at home that didn't have the courage to do anything, that only watch these channels, learned that there was 2 million people there, there might have been 10 million people the following weekend, and then 20 the following weekend after that.
Yep. Yeah, it's a process. I think Paul and I talk about it quite a bit, that the movie, the show that we're watching is not just for the, I mean, it's not just for the enjoyment of some anons who kind of look and laugh. It really is to teach people, and pain is the best teacher.
Yeah.
It's also teaching all the demographics simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's really strange to think about.
You can't tell the people, you must show them.
Yeah.
Like Q says it all the time, and that's what this is. It's like, look, this is what happens when you let go of your elections and when you let go of your expectations for leaders and accountability. This is the kind of shit that happens. So that when this show is done, I think we're going to see it in the US. You guys are going to see it. In fact, it's going to be worldwide, where people are like, you know what? Enough of this shit. We're going to enshrine this stuff in a constitution or in rules that cannot possibly be broken.
Well, the rule really is self-governance. You know, people for too long have just looked outside themselves for everything. For everything. They want a magic pill to help, you know, lose weight. Stop eating. Get out and exercise. Like, it's pretty simple, you know. They want the magic answer for, you know, fixing things around them, their towns, their country. Do it. Get out there. Protest. You know, go meet your, like, it's just everybody has just been lulled into this worldwide, into this you're just a victim. There's nothing you could do. And that just drives me so crazy. Even with this mayor, you know, Mamdani, like, I was talking to some people. Now, I can't vote in that election because I'm not a resident of New York City, but they're like, oh, it's terrible. That's it. Like, how did he get there? Why is he there? Do you have an issue with this? And then I was amazed. This is what really got me. Some of the Muslim neighborhoods in New York, that people are actually Trump supporters. Like, had Mamdani signs up. I was like, what the hell is that about? So I think it's like people, they have to, and they're doing it so brilliant because this plan is wherever you are, there's something to resonate with that particular mindset or positioning or belief system. And you know, I think like we were blessed because we were able to sort of resist and see and have that, for whatever reason, if we decided to come in here, you know, at this time and incarnate and be the ones that were supposed to help educate and build the awareness. But the point is, whatever the reason, we got our own red pilling through the years. You know, we were also brainwashed in one way or another. I mean, I look at myself, my kids are in college. If I was really out of the system, they wouldn't be in a university. Do you know, it's kind of like if you're either in or you're out, but some of us are like, well, we're partially in, but we don't buy this, but we don't believe that. So I just think everybody has to just start looking within and making decisions and doing things that align with themselves and stop listening to what the news says or the officials say. But I got a question for you guys. Paul, you're in Florida. John, you're in Minneapolis. Are you in Minnesota or Minneapolis? Like, are you in the state or in the city?
I'm not technically in downtown Minneapolis.
Okay.
I'm in the West Metro, the Minneapolis Metro.
Okay, so like me, you're like on the little bit of the suburbs of the city.
Someone
So how do you know each other? How did you get together and how did you start working the magic that you guys are doing.
Well, yeah, that's what I want to ask as well. The first
Well, I
question,
beat you.
if you could just give us a bit of an introduction and how the awakening's been for you over the years until now.
Yeah. Well, you want me to start, Paul?
Go for it.
So I started following Q in early 2018. A buddy of mine told me about it, and as soon as I was on the boards, I'm like, like it was so interesting, and I felt like I was among my people, among all the gore and all the other shit that showed up on the chants. But it wasn't until 2022 or 2023, might have been 23. So there was a thing called Threadfest, and it was in Nashville, and it was the first time that I'd ever met anybody in real life that I could talk to about this stuff. And I met a guy named Scott Zimmerman, Beer at the Parade. Beer invited me on.
And he froze.
Oh, that doesn't normally happen, does it? What about you, then,
Wait,
Paul?
am I doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go back to John.
Sorry. I'll just continue. I think what happened is he met Scott Beer at the Parade at Threadfest, and I'll let him describe the interaction. But what ended up happening is Beer had these Friday night Zoom calls that he'd get like 30 or 40 people on, and it was actually, everybody was really well behaved. Nobody talked over each other. It was kind of crazy to see that many people on a Zoom call that were polite and talking about it, and everybody was talking about what was going on. I ended up getting invited to that in 2023, I think January 2022. And John was in those calls, and I was just watching people's behavior, trying to figure out what was going on. And I ended up reaching out to several of the people on there and introducing myself and saying, hey, this is good. And when I called John, I got John's number from Scott, and called John, and we just hit it off. And I had been doing just monster amounts of research. I had spent about 5 years doing nothing but digging into trying to figure out what the hell was going on. By the way, John is trying to figure out why he has no internet access.
Oh.
So he'll be back. I'm just going to tell him to keep trying.
That's cool.
So I had spent 5 years just, I slept, I ate, I showered, and I read and dug in, and I followed every rabbit hole you could follow. And I have a lot of advantages over most people in that I spent my entire life in the high-tech industries. So I was able to see things that other people wouldn't. But go back to John, and he can describe his interaction with Scott. I let them know, John, that how we met, how I called you, and we hit it off, but I didn't get into any details. So just continue what.
Yeah, sorry. We've had this issue at work, the internet once in a while, and it's Comcast for business, and they're impossible to get out here. Oh, we'll just reboot your router. Yeah, you've done that 3 times. Anyway, so where was I? Threadfest. So yeah, I met Scott, got on Scott's Zooms, and at some point, Paul is invited into the Zoom, and I'd been seeing his posts on Truth Social and X and stuff, and he had a really interesting take on things, and so somehow we ended up starting to talk, and we ended up, how many articles later on that Substack?
I haven't counted. Let me. I don't know. Probably 17. That's
right.
So you both hit it off, and you started collaborating, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what it was, though, is it was just that in terms of being and thinking about stuff and having taking a perspective on things, both Paul and I tend to think kind of along the same lines. We're both uber rational, like no ego for this stuff. So we'll speculate on things, just even he and I. And okay, if we're wrong, we're wrong. But we don't.
30 articles, by the way.
30. Wow.
There's about to be 31 too, John. I'm going to write another one about the macro.
That'd be a good one, actually. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we just kind of came at things differently. And everybody always says that, like, oh, you guys are orbiting like Saturn or something like that. And
We are.
We are, yeah. Probably Jupiter actually, but it's unique in that, like, we'll consider stuff that when we voiced it to other people and have an emotional reaction, like, no way, there's no way that could be. It's like, well,
yeah.
That happens when you're unwilling to think through whether or not the proposition makes sense. One of the ways we differ is that we questioned everything, including the veracity of everything that most people consider as hard evidence. Like, for example, if there's a biography of, the Bush family, people say, well, everything in that book is true because there's a book there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if that book is curated and it's just there to make you think that they behave a certain way?
Exactly.
Look at Ingersoll Lockwood, that was allegedly published in the 1890s and, predicts Trump and stuff. But how do we know that wasn't just inserted into the Library of Congress 20 years ago?
Right. And with books, it's just common knowledge that even the most non-controversial authors, they don't write their own books once they become successful. They have people on. So why is it so crazy to think that someone would create the persona that they want people to embrace, right?
It actually gets even weirder than that when you start thinking like a magician and thinking about sleight of hand. If somebody is intentionally, like one of the things I've always said is that Occam's razor always fails in an environment of deception. Because if somebody is trying to deceive you, it's going to be more complicated than Occam's razor, right? So Occam's razor is never correct if someone's trying to deceive you. And that just breaks people's heads. So if you look at the whole situation and assume that the way the world works is someone's trying to deceive you and make you think it works differently, then you have to question everything and try to make sense of it based on not individual pieces of hard evidence, although individual pieces of information can be evidence for a pattern. You have to look at it with just raw deductive reasoning and say, does this make sense? Is there a motivation, access, opportunity, all that stuff for this to actually make sense in aggregate? And so I think people are looking at a relatively small time frame, like the last 5, 8, 10 years, 20 years, and saying, does this make sense? Well, what about 50 years? What about 100 years? What about 1,000 years? And so a lot of the narratives that are going around, it's the Masons or it's the Illuminati or, whatever, those work in a limited time frame, but they don't work in a longer time frame.
Yeah. I mean, what's great about you guys as well, when you come up with something, you're constantly trying to prove yourselves wrong. Yeah. And then you find yourself keep going deeper.
And then when you can't prove yourself wrong, you go insane.
Yeah. And you try and prove yourself wrong and you find out you're right. And
well, either that or you find yourself not wrong in that moment. There's always a possibility that it gets that down the line, because what is a scientific truth? It's just something that hasn't been disproven yet.
Yeah, science can't prove anything true.
Right.
Science can only prove things false. There is no method to prove things true.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of the, intuition and your gut, which people have just been so detached from, right? Because sometimes you just have a knowing and it puts you in a direction to start to prove that. Like, I was on the phone with my aunt who's in her 70s when Butler, Pennsylvania happened. And I don't know what I was distracted, getting the leash on the dog, whatever I was doing. She's like, oh my God, they just shot him. They shot him. And I was like, who? She's like, they just shot Trump. I was like, and I literally, like, my heart rate didn't even go up. I was like, I don't think that really happened. Hadn't seen it, wasn't in front. She's like, you're calling me a liar. And I was like, no, I'm sure you saw that, but I don't really think it was real.
You're not intentionally lying.
And she doesn't want to talk to me because I'm crazy and I should get.
She's taking it as an insult.
Yes.
It's basically an emotional reaction instead of saying, well, what if I'm wrong?
Right.
Right.
What would be the worst thing if that was true what I just said. Like does your life come, but some people are so attached. That's the problem. It's attachment. They're so attached to their belief systems. It keeps them sane. It makes them feel safe, that unlike a lot of us in this community, our followers and everything, we have, I guess, a little more stamina to say, I'm not going to fall apart if this isn't the way I always thought it was. So I can ignore that.
A lot of it's ego. Everybody wants to maximize what they perceive is other people's perception of them. So they try to minimize the appearance of looking wrong because they don't want other people to think they're stupid. And so this is something that the kids learn really quick, and then adults just don't grow out of it.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. And so everybody's trying to be right about everything. And the thing is, being wrong feels exactly the same as being right. It's when you find out that you're wrong that feels bad. Yeah. And so a lot of people, and I say this very often, most people are walking around and most things they believe are wrong, and they just don't know it. So they think they're right about everything. And if you show them they're wrong, they just wig out with this bizarre emotional reaction. When learning from being wrong is great, because you learn humility and you learn that, yeah, okay, so what if I'm wrong? At least I know the right answer now, or something more correct.
Well, it's part of growth, right? It's all part of growth and expanding your thinking. So I know, Stu, you want, like, were you always like kind of questioners or conspiracy theorists? Like, was that part of your backgrounds as humans before a lot of this other stuff kind of was so obvious?
When did you sort of wake up to there's something not right in the world? Sort of, if that was before, obviously, Trump and the Q operation.
Go ahead, Paul. I'm gonna answer somebody here.
When I was about 12, my dad was a member of an organization in Oregon called the Citizens Bar Association, and it was basically a bunch of patriots. This was in the 1700s, no, the 1970s. And they were talking about how the IRS was unconstitutional, the amendments that weren't ratified properly, that they wouldn't pay taxes. They were getting arrested by the feds. Wow. They were starting banks with gold bullion and getting arrested for that. And so I saw all that from a very young age. And it to me, it was just an attribute of how the world works. So it wasn't conspiracy theory at all. And also, I've always not liked the term conspiracy theorist, because it's just, I don't know. I would just, to be blunt, it's just kind of retarded on its surface, because, for example, businesses have business plans internally that they don't share with the outside world, right? That's essentially a conspiracy to make money.
Right.
I mean, even to the extent of where their marketing is essentially softly lies. They're exaggerating what their product does, and they're lying to their customers, right? To get the customers to buy their stuff to some extent, right? They're exaggerating, right? Well, that's a conspiracy to sucker people who don't know better into paying money for their product, right? So there's conspiracies all over the place.
Yeah, and I put in air quotes because I don't ascribe to that expression, but that's what you get from people because they've been brainwashed.
Well, if you run the world, then your business model is to do exactly what all the other businesses are doing, right? So why is it considered different? I just never understood why a conspiracy theory is different than any other thing that people do when they're not specifying precisely what their intent is.
Because we were told that by the CIA after the Kennedy assassination, and everybody got embedded into everybody's brain. And so if you go against what's on the news to a normie, you're a conspiracy. They're spitting it back out.
Right. I've just never bought into that label, and I've never bought into that because it doesn't seem to be different than the rest of how the world works at all. And so I just look at it as trying to. The reason I got sucked into Q was because I ran a software company and I did all the strategy and I managed all the development. So I had to think many years into the future. And so when Q popped out and I looked at it, I thought, what the hell is that? I said, that's like military grade psyops. And so I just stopped what I was doing, because if I don't understand the macro view of how the technology industry is going to move forward, then I can't do strategy. And so until I solve that problem, I'm useless. And that's why I spent 5 years trying to figure out what was going on. And by the way, inside of a year, I had started the process of shuttering my company. because what I saw in Q was so corrupt that my company was incredibly vulnerable to patent lawsuits. And so in order to retain the ownership of the intellectual property, I just shuttered the whole thing. So yeah, I've never looked at it as conspiracy theorist versus not. I understand that label and I understand what people see of that. I just don't think of it that way, because I think of it as, well, the world works somehow. Let's go figure out how it works.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, so after 9/11 was kind of a thing for me, but I wasn't fully awake. It just was like, this is really weird. I remember my cousin, who's a lib, she was like, yeah, there's no way those buildings came down by themselves. I mean, the jet fuel doesn't melt steel. And I remember thinking, she's fucking crazy. I mean, you know, there has to be a reason why they came down. And I wasn't even thinking conspiratorially. And by the way, I prefer conspiracy philosopher, but
well, we prefer pattern recognitionists.
There you go. But it wasn't until Trump came down the escalator, and the attacks on him from people that had been his friends, that had been friends of his, it was like, something is really off here. Like, why are they doing that? And so that was kind of my lead into something is gravely wrong. It also baffled me that Obama beat out Hillary with all of the machinery she had behind her.
Well, and Obama just appeared out of nowhere, and very few people knew who he was, and then he won the presidency.
Yeah, he was on Oprah, and she told him, you should really run for president. And then he did. And it's very interesting because I'm like very similar, like to you, John, like that my awakening, you know, like with 9/11, I was like, no, but then I saw the hole in the Pentagon. I was like, Yeah. But the thing that kind of woke me up, you guys are going to laugh. I was in the supermarket and I was online and I picked up a National Enquirer, which I usually don't do. I'm not one of those like, and I saw the whole story on how Michelle Obama, it was like 2008, Michelle Obama was really a man. And I was like, you know, that totally makes sense to me. There's something really effed up about this whole thing. And then I started telling people all the science of why, and forget it. My family was like, you're out of your freaking mind. So that's when the separation started, because they started going down, like, you know, but Trump also really, that whole 2016 started to, wow. Yeah, so we all found each other.
Yeah, Big Mike.
Big Mike.
Yeah, that's one of Elisa's favourites. She can't wait for that to come out. Similar to you, Paul, I was 13 in a history lesson at grammar school, and I just had this feeling, it just came over me. This is all fucking bollocks. But I didn't know why for another 20 years. I sort of went raving in the 90s, started hearing about reptilians and royal family and things like that. But it was same as you, John. It wasn't until after 9/11 that I really started digging into it, and then that took me about 5 years after that. So, you know, I haven't read the Bible, but I've read bits of it and the Quran and all these things, and I just couldn't work out what their plan was, you know. And if this plan had been going for hundreds of years and we only lived 70, 80 years, you know, why wouldn't they be there to see the end of it, and all this sorts of stuff of astrology and everything. But I wanted to ask you guys a specific question, really, because we get loads of people saying, oh, trust the plan, and Q-tards and Operation Trust and all this sorts of stuff. But sort of how important is this Q operation to the awakening, as a sort of like sub-question? But my main question is to you, and I know you've talked about this before, and you can take as long as you like about this and go back as far as you can, because I know you've done this before. But the question is, for the full control versus partial control, how much of this operation was already done before they posted that first Q drop?
All of it. All of it.
We've talked about jeopardizing the operation and stuff. So you take it away.
Well, I'll start. When Paul and I first started talking, we started talking about Q and saying, you know, Q says buy the book according to the law, right? So this has to have been authorized by a president. Trump was inaugurated 10 months prior to the first Q drop.
Yeah, 9 or 9.5.
Could they have possibly planned, because we're told this operation is worldwide, there's corruption everywhere at all levels of government, and
you can see the evidence of it too. It's not just what we're told. You
right,
see the patterns.
Right. So you see all of this corruption. Could they have even planned this in 10 months? Could they have even mapped it in 10 months? And both of us were like, that doesn't seem possible. The other thing is that if you had an operation like this, where humanity has, we're told, one bite at the apple to get this thing right, would they have ever done anything that might have compromised the outcome? Meaning, would they have been saying, would Q have been saying, yeah, operators are active, prey, all this stuff, if they really were, if that could be disrupted, this plan that's so important to humanity? It doesn't seem like it. It seems like, to me anyway, it was over before it started, before Q started. And we're watching it now play out in a medium or in a format or in a storyline that most of humanity can understand. Anons look at this and go, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. You got Keir Starmer. We had Joe Biden. We're like, yeah, these guys are not legitimate. Except the problem is that normies don't think like that. Normies are afraid.
Just leave like that off the end.
Normies, though, Lisa, to your point, one of the things that I think separates Anons, or the type of personality that Anons are, is that we aren't afraid to go out there and stand alone and look at the whole crowd and go, yeah, you're all fucking wrong.
Right.
Right. Most people need consensus.
Yeah.
Well, most Anons are also victim of the same thinking.
That this is true. This is true to a degree. But
we had to be like a little bit of the trailblazers in our communities, families. It's not easy. Like, if you think about it, when everybody's in fear mode and can't wait for this vaccine, and then it comes out and you're there saying, no, it's just not, you're not invited. You can't come in the house. You can't do, and you're just like, okay, because my commitment to what I know is the truth is far more important than what somebody thinks of me, even if it hurts, even if it's someone dear to you or something. And that's what we all stood in.
Yeah.
We all stood in that,
We had, during COVID, so my wife and I both went to Notre Dame University, and University of Notre Dame, actually. But we went to Notre Dame, and there were 4 other couples in the metro area that we were all friends with when we were classmates. And so we would have these Friday night Zooms or Saturday happy hour Zooms. And it was all through the first part of the lockdown. And then when the vaccines came out in March, I think, of 21, I remember one of the couples was like, hey, we got our vaccine appointments. And I'm not saying anything, right? I'm just like, okay, whatever, you guys. And they were all talking about getting the vaccine, and I'm silent. And Jackie, my wife, is also silent, although she ended up getting the vaccine. And one of my buddies was like, hey, John, what are you doing? You going to get the vaccine? I'm like, no, not planning on it. And everyone looked at me like I had 2 heads.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the beginning of the end. I mean, they asked why. And I talked about mRNA and experimental stuff and antibody-dependent enhancement and all this. And they're all looking at me like, yeah, over their head. And I can't believe you're not getting the vaccine. And
how are we going to go to a restaurant? How are we going to go to a ball game? I want to go to a concert. Like, are you that's what I had around me.
Right. Yeah, I want to be able to travel. Okay, so you're going to get this vaccine that might harm you. It's worth the travel? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Well, courses for horses.
What's that?
I said courses for horses. To each their own.
Well, it's interesting because I've always been into health. So I think there's a connection somewhere, because even though I wasn't awake fully, I was just knew from the time I was in my early 20s, there is something so grossly wrong with how they raise food. There's something so wrong with how they tell us to take care of ourselves. So I think all these things were out there, but I did have a father who was anti-government, was like a total Sicilian, Italian, guy. And he also believed in all these extraterrestrials. So I think that planted a lot of seeds when the time was right. And I think a lot of us, like Stu, you always say when you were a kid, you felt it, like, you know, something about us just knew something's not right.
Yeah, but I mean, my mum was a teacher all her life, and my dad worked in the bank all his life. So I was in a very establishment family.
Yeah. Yeah, the hard part is to try to piece together the motive, opportunity, and all that stuff for why COVID happened, why all these things are there, why did the world turn to shit? You know, why do the banks have so much control over everything? Why is the gold and silver market in backwardation for 15 years? I mean, these things don't seem to make sense. And then they make sense when you get into the conspiracy theories, in that you have these big bad boogeymen that are running the world secretly, and they're all, you know, they're all trying to kill us. Well, I mean, if you look at military armament, if they wanted to kill us, they'd just kill us.
We'd have been dead.
Yeah. So is that actually true? Does that actually make sense? And conclusion John and I came to is, nah, we'd be dead.
Right.
So there has to be another explanation. You know, there is a way that things are run.
Well, it's slavery.
Well, it's like the chemtrails, isn't it? I mean, if they were in control, if the dark side was still in control of the chemtrails, and they wanted us gone, they'd just put some serious poison in there and just fucking fly the planes for a day around the world, and we'd all be gone.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, and you still see chemtrails. So why would the good guys put chemtrails out there? My personal opinion is chemtrails are just smoke and mirrors. There's literally nothing to them other than the perception that chemtrails exist.
I think we're getting sprayed, though. We're just getting sprayed by nanoparticles or something else. I mean, Paul and I have talked about this.
Yeah, but it's not happening from planes. And we know that because I dug into this very, very closely, because I was talking to people all across the United States, and I was talking to people in Britain and Australia. And everybody's symptoms were in sync.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but some people didn't have chemtrails near them. Some people did, but they were having the same symptoms. So imagine the planning that would be necessary to try to synchronize everybody's symptoms with chemtrails, with weather patterns even.
Yeah.
It's virtually impossible. So what would be necessary to synchronize symptoms like that? Global spraying in the stratosphere. Well, now. So, but that requires the belief that whoever's running the world has technology that's way beyond what we're seeing. Okay, but that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so, John, and my conclusion is, yeah, that's happening.
Yeah. And if chemtrails are a thing, you can't wake people up to chemtrails if there's no chemtrails in the sky. You know, we haven't talked about that before. So you know, if they have got hold of them and they want us looking up, and they want to wake the normies up, they've still got to put something up there. Because you can't put chemtrails if you've got a beautiful blue sky. I thought that would have woken people up in lockdown. I don't know what it was like when you were, because there was no planes in the sky. It's like the summers of the 80s again.
Right. You got to hammer them for years. And so try to piece together, okay, imagine what would be a scenario where there's spraying going on with much, much more capable technology, but then you also want to put out fake chemtrail narratives to the population. Why would you do that? Right? What are all the possible reasons that you could possibly want to do that? Conclusion I came to is, well, that narrative is useful for some reason, and it's very useful if you are creating a false bad guy.
Even better, that if and when the turn happens, right? And I think the show goes on long after, forever. The ride never ends. But I think what happens, though, one way I could see this is that the chemtrails stop, the stratosphere spraying either stops or drops dramatically,
or they switch to stimulation instead of sedation.
And everybody in perfect coordination with things getting good politically and all this other stuff, everybody magically starts to feel better. Like
all at the same time, when the announcement happens that they caught, Batty McBad guy who's got hundreds of trillions of dollars, and they run him through some international court, and he has to pay the entire population back bazillions of dollars, and everybody's rich.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, why would you create an artificial bad guy? And there's actually, if you think about philosophy, there's a very, very good reason to do that.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm sure we're getting to a bit of Zoid chatter in a little while.
Yeah. This
language. That's
where this all ends up. And it's a huge, like, people talk about red pills. This is like a green pill. It's it's a suppository, because it's so big that you have to unlearn how you think the world works in order to understand it. And one of the most fundamental differences is actually philosophical. It is the question of what's more important, the preventing the extinction of humanity or individual rights.
This is one of those where it's easy to lose people, because people are going to go, well, wait a minute, I don't want to have surveillance.
Yeah,
you already do.
You already do. Yeah.
Right.
Now, and this gets into a whole. God, this goes so deep and so long. You know, picture the people who run the world 1,000 years ago, and they know that if they can deploy surveillance, they can eliminate crime. They can eliminate 99.99% of crime. Okay, but it's going to take hundreds and hundreds of years to deploy surveillance. Okay, well, if you look back through history, it looks like that's exactly what happened. And that also explains all of the last couple hundred years of the big bankers and the Rothschilds and everything. They intentionally made the world look bad so that they could prosecute bad guys, because the normies understand good guy, bad guy, but they don't understand life versus extinction.
Yeah.
Okay, so you create a narrative, and you have to find a way to transition from a culture and a way of life where everybody is coupling money and their job and value and worth and mating. All that's coupled together into, I have to work, right? That's where we are. And we have to move to a situation where nobody has to do anything that they don't want to do. But the intelligent people go get us colonized on other planets. How do you do that? And so if that's what's going on, everything you look at makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean, no, go on.
All right. This is though the place where people diverge and go, you're talking about what seems like utopia. How can that possibly be?
No, it's actually ugly as hell.
But can you imagine though, humanity allowed to, a certain percentage of humans are going to be just fine with an Xbox and a pile of weed. Some people don't have that that might be their self-actualization. That might be the top of their Maslow pyramid.
The apex of their creativity.
Right. But there are plenty of people that are driven, that want to help their fellow humans, that want to see society advance. I mean, we're given this NLP in Star Trek, not the new bullshit woke stuff. I'm talking about the original and even the Next Generation.
Yeah, actually, and that begs the question, why does Star Trek exist?
Yeah, exactly.
It's incredibly accurate.
Look, if you guys go back, there's an episode on the original Star Trek called Bread and Circus. And Bread and Circus is where Spock and Kirk end up on this planet. They had to go there because 100 years before, or 1,000, whatever, at some point, a previous Federation captain landed and decided he was going to be in it for himself. And he took over the planet, and he told the inhabitants, basically violated the Prime Directive. So Kirk and Spock end up there. And what it is, it's like the Roman civilization. They have gladiator fights, and they have slaves, and they have all this stuff. And Kirk is talking to the chancellor, or whatever his title is, saying, why do you insist on such control? Why do you have basically I'm paraphrasing, your boot on the throat of humanity? When the whole point is humans need to be free. They want to be free. That's the greatest possible thing. And the guy says, well, you guys have been warring constantly for the last 400 years. We've had 0 wars. So Paul and I remember we watched that. It was obviously separately, but we watched it and we talked a lot about it. Like, you know what? That old faction running the world, you could run the world and protect humanity by allowing corruption, but controlling the corruption. So you have a boot on the throat of humanity. That's one path to save humanity. The other path, which is where we think those that rule the world are headed or have always focused on, is we want the maximum amount of freedom for humanity. But in order to get there, we've got to eliminate this corruption.
The way I would put it is their primary goal is prevent extinction. And a good example of potential extinction is in 1.23 million years, I believe, there was a star identified. It was published in 91 or 92. There's a star that will come so close to the solar system that it has a 97% chance of disrupting all the orbits of the planets. In that scenario, humanity dies. 1.23 million years. So, we don't have billions of years. We have 1.23 million or less. And we will all be dead if we have not colonized other planets around other stars to a scale in which they can colonize other planets. So in other words, we have to make other planets around other star systems far more capable than we are currently within that time frame, or life as we know it is dead. There. Now, how are you going to explain that to the normie on the street and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't be smoking all that weed and playing Xbox all day?
We've got humanity to save in like 500,000 generations. You know, I mean, because people don't think that way. People are not thinking out. So, I mean, the Zord,
it's actually not that many generations.
No, it really isn't.
And isn't it, haven't we heard that Star Trek, which, by the way, my father and mother used to fight every night because he wanted the small TV so he could watch Star Trek at dinner time. So we all had to watch that. But but what I was saying is there's a lot of talk out there too that Star Trek was actually a bit of a gift, if you will, that was given to us to disclose and explain a lot of these things, that they could be understood in that kind of way. And you have to also wonder, when you get into what you just said, Paul, about colonizing, well, isn't that why some of these, what we understand, why a lot of these other races came to our planet initially, right? They had problems on their own. Well, I mean, what we think, maybe the Anunnaki, they needed gold because they had screwed up their planet and this, that, and the other thing, if any of that is true.
Yeah, I've never seen any credible evidence that there's any other intelligent life than humans. I mean, other than like dolphins. That I see tons and tons of narratives, but if you think through what would that look like imagine humans went to another planet, right? We get a little bit more advanced than we are. We travel around and we find what we would consider a primitive species that hasn't grown out of their own planet yet. Would we mess with them? No. Like we'd leave them alone. We'd probably observe them, make sure they're not a threat, but we'd be invisible, I think. We certainly wouldn't go down and talk to their government officials and negotiate and use them for meat. I mean, like, some of these narratives are ridiculous.
I'm not even talking now. I'm talking like when you look at things like the Book of Enoch and some of the walls, the carvings and things like that. And there was something. I mean, there's evidence, that we could say, why is that there? Was there?
Well, I mean, look at Ingersoll Lockwood. Was it put there to confuse us?
But that to me is a little different. But I agree with you. The theory is the same. So we really don't know, right?
The Book of Enoch is really interesting, and the Book of Enoch was not included in the Bible. And
why didn't they include it? That's the other thing, right?
Well, the Book of Enoch describes Metatron, and Metatron is the most powerful angel in heaven, the only angel allowed to sits beside God, and documents every happening in the human condition. So basically, watches and records everything. Doesn't that sound like the secret faction that runs the world?
It does.
Okay. It doesn't have to be anything metaphysical. It doesn't have to be anything alien. Now, there are tons of people out there claiming that ancient texts from the Sumerians, Mesopotamians,
right,
they say things about aliens, right? But when you actually read the original stuff that they're claiming says that, it doesn't say that at all. Like, read the Epic of Gilgamesh. It doesn't say most of the stuff that people say it says. Read the Epic of Atrahasis.
Yep.
Same thing. They just don't say all that weird alien stuff.
Well, it's interesting you saying, it's interesting you saying that, because you also you talk a lot, don't you, about the Smith-Mundt Act and how people have misinterpreted that. So,
well, it's not that they misinterpreted it; it's that they believed Leon at the bar. Like, Leon said that the Smith-Mundt Act made propaganda illegal, and it just didn't.
Well, yeah, and what's crazy about the Smith-Mundt Act, and we've said it on a bunch of shows, but everybody listening, go read it. Go read it. 1947, the original Smith-Mundt Act, because why is that even relevant now? Well, Obama repealed it in 2012 and made propaganda legal again.
It was always legal.
It never was illegal to begin with. The only thing that the Smith-Mundt Act prohibited, the original one, was the dissemination of propaganda by the U.S. government that the U.S. government made for international distribution. That's it.
Foreign distribution.
Right.
Foreign propaganda cannot be used domestically, but if they create domestic propaganda, it's totally untouched by that act.
Except you see law firms, you see big pundits repeatedly talk about, oh, Obama really fucked it up when he repealed the Smith-Mundt Act. He made it possible for the bad guys to propagandize us. No, he didn't.
Wrong. It didn't do shit.
Yeah, go back and read it. That's the thing.
So your process then, from the Q drops, and this must have been done a while. Can you just walk us back with, going into Obama, and then before that, and how far you went back, and then because obviously we want to talk about the Zoids and this bird language, and how you started discovering these things in reverse, in like a reverse awakening, basically.
Well, I think it's the intended process, but they know that very few people will be able to get their head around it. So they know it's going to be like weirdos find it first. and then you get early influencers, and then you get early adopters, and it starts a cascade effect over time. And you mentioned the bird language. That's like the mind-bending proof of all of it is there's no way this is an accident. But the way John and I started doing it, I don't know if you want to explain it, John. John mentioned before, there's these cracks in the Q narrative. There's no way it could have been planned that fast. It had to be authorized by a POTUS. So we went to go find which POTUS authorized it.
Yeah, couldn't have been Trump. It would have been too soon. So then we said, okay, well, what about Obama? Everyone said Obama, the bad guy. Da, da, da. Well, if you look at some of the stuff that Obama did, an executive order that was it executive order? Or it became statute. That 2009, December of 2009,
he basically made any government document that concealed a crime was instantly declassified.
Actually, no. Any government document that was originally classified to conceal a crime,
right,
was made basically illegal. Right? That's not something a bad guy would do.
No, he would have been killed immediately.
So we went back, and then obviously you got W and all of the crazy stuff there with 9/11 and the Patriot Act, and he looks like he's a deep state guy, but
his eyes are really close together.
Well, you got Bill Clinton, and we kind of stopped at Clinton, like, well, maybe Clinton was controlled, and then we kind of sort of hit on this idea that if you were running this, if you were the good guys running this thing, would you put anybody in the White House, in the Oval Office, that would have the kind of power that the President of the United States has? Would you put anybody there that was just merely controlled, or would they have to have been a white hat all along? And this is also where we lose people. We go, yeah, Obama was a white hat. We think.
Yeah, but you're giving a lot of you're saying all the power that the president has. But if a president has a gun to his head,
or what if the president's in on it? What if the president is?
Who are they? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, who we have to keep going back to say who's they.
Yeah, we didn't come to the they conclusion. We didn't come to our Zoid conclusion until we'd gone back hundreds of years, and we said,
right, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, they is not who most people think they is. People say, oh, they wouldn't do that. They don't even know who they is.
Right.
So how do they know how they would behave? They have no idea what their motivations are. They have no idea what their intent is. And if you go back far enough and look at it, and you get into deep philosophy and you read Descartes and you you do all this stuff, you start coming to conclusions that the way the people that we are presented with, like the Rothschild family, like, what is their motivation? When you have that much money, you can't make your life more comfortable. You can't make your family's life more comfortable. What do you think about? These people think,
comes next.
Right. Everybody thinks that. But the thing is, there are more good people than bad people. So most of these people with money should be good people. What would a good person think about? Nobody ever considers that, which is weird. It's kind of a weird cognitive dissonance in people's heads. But if you have a rich trillionaire, how would they behave? Because the amount of money they have access to is not just, oh, I can take a better vacation. Like, there's nothing they can do to make their life better.
Okay, but let me stop you just to argument in that. Why and how do they have all this money? Because that does go back to some form of control,
right?
Funding both, like all these narratives we've heard.
Right.
Why? How are you getting there? Where is the money coming from? The income tax, pharmaceuticals, all these things that harm us and keep us enslaved.
Do they harm us?
Pharmaceuticals do. I mean, you look at side effects and all kinds of other stuff. So I could watch people.
But who told you about the side effects?
What do you mean? No, seeing them. I'm watching a woman right now with many side effects from all the drugs she's on.
Okay.
Let me go back. We'll get to this. I just want to explain what our process was for this whole thing, right? So we started saying, well, some president had to have authorized this. And so we get to Clinton, you get to HW, you got Reagan. Well, we figured out JFK, it's got to be, right? I mean, he figures so large in the drops and central to everything. And so we started looking at JFK and we're like, yeah, I mean, there's something there, but he was only in office for a very short time. So we started looking at Eisenhower. You look at the 8 years of Eisenhower, and then we started looking at Eisenhower the man and what his career had been. World War II, he was a supreme Allied commander, right? He would have known all of the leaders of the foreign, basically all the allies, and eventually the Axis.
He's one of the only people in the world who could get a call back from anyone on the planet.
So we started looking at World War II, and then we went further back because what happened was we looked at Eisenhower's background. Eisenhower made a really a very specific point reference to say, the man that made me was a guy by the name of Fox Connor, Brigadier General Fox Connor. So we started looking at Fox Connor, like, well, what's with this guy?
By the way, Fox 3 in the Q drops.
Splash. Yeah. Splash 3. Anyway, Fox Connor was on General Pershing's staff. And I didn't know a ton about General Pershing. I knew he was powerful and all this, but you look at who was in his orbit and what they accomplished after they left his orbit. You have Harry Truman. You have Bill Donovan, who founded the OSS, forerunner to the CIA. You have Dawes, George Dawes, VP candidate, or VP in 1924, was the author of the Dawes Plan, which refinanced all of the German reparations, helped them get out of the hyperinflation. You have Smedley Butler's in there somewhere, not directly under Pershing, but Hugh Johnson, which is the best name ever, Hugh Johnson. Hugh Johnson was Times Man of the Year in 1933 for 1932 for leading the National Recovery Act.
Tell them about the weird pattern we found where their good guy, bad guy appearance in public changed.
And by the way, what you're saying is very consistent if you've ever spoken with Laura Eisenhower and her dives into what her great grandfather did, because he took a lot of shit out there for, being a bad guy. And so a lot of the things that she knows from, the family and also from her connection, if you will, through all that. So when I saw you guys talk about this, because there's a lot of people out there Eisenhower bashing.
Yep.
And when I saw you guys, I was really like delighted. And in fact, I called Laura. I was like, I sent you the link to that show. I was like,
Oh my God.
You need to watch this because these guys are really onto what I think is a lot of the truths that you profess and talk about. So,
yeah, let's talk about the 8 years
with Hugh Johnson. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. Well, look at the 8 years of presidency under Eisenhower. It was the Department of Energy was created. Q clearance.
Q clearance. That's where it came from.
Yep. NASA was created. PEDs were first used, although that's just, I think,
PEDs are pointless. They're just ignore them.
The NSA was created. What else? There was a Time magazine article from 1956 or 57. He related a story that Area 51 had UFO craft, or the CIA was doing a bunch of stuff at Area 51. And Eisenhower wasn't getting the reports from the CIA. And they kept just delaying and pushing it off. And finally he threatened, he said, look, either you're going to give me the reports or I'm going to go in there with the first division. We're going to take the whole thing over. That was in a Time magazine article about advanced technology. That
would never be in a Time magazine article.
No.
There's no way that would be below Q clearance.
Right.
100%.
So why did it appear? Because it's part of a narrative.
Right.
It's just fluff for the normies.
So the good guy, bad guy stuff. So you have Hugh Johnson, who let's go back. Hugh Johnson was the youngest man to ever be promoted to brigadier general in like 1916, I think it was. At that time, we were not in the war, or 1915, whatever. We weren't in the war, and there was all this talk about instituting the draft for the first time. And Hugh Johnson was in the Pentagon, and he was already making the moves and laying groundwork for it. He could have been court-martialed for that, but he wasn't, because we had to get into World War I. Anyway, Hugh Johnson goes on the National Recovery Act, and the National Recovery Act, if you guys ever look it up, it was during the Depression, and the point was to try to control. Basically, it was a command economy type of thing with major industries. So you're going to have quotas, you're going to have price limits, and all of this stuff. And he so famously fucked it up that even economists now look at that and go, "We tried this; it doesn't work."
Yeah, it's the example of how not to do it.
Right. He totally nerfed that concept. But what's interesting too is that he was disgraced because in 1935 he handed out books, or 34 or 35. He handed out a book written by Mussolini's fascist treasury guy or economist guy. He handed out books to the entire cabinet of FDR. Like, why would you do that?
Why would you pass out communist literature? And you look at this guy's history, you go back 20, 30 years, he actually wrote a book about military strategy and stuff. Like, the guy's a total patriot, total good guy. And suddenly he flips and does all sorts of really horrible shit. Right. And we found the same pattern across a whole bunch of these guys. They were great guys with great careers. And then they got into politics and went, wow. And then they popped back out again. And we said, what's going on? This is a pattern.
So we went from Pershing. We went back and I didn't know he was at the Battle of Kettle Hill, which is San Juan Hill. He and Teddy Roosevelt crossed paths there. And Teddy Roosevelt said he was the coolest man under fire I've ever seen. So Teddy gets sworn in after McKinley's assassinated in 1902. 1904, Teddy is reelected to his second term. 1904 is when he brings his buddy Captain John Pershing to Washington, assigns him to unspecified duties. That's in
D.C.
In D.C.
Nobody knows what he did.
And he goes to the Army and he says, look, it would be a lot more useful if you guys would promote him to colonel. And the Army says, nope, we're not doing that. We've got 800 guys ahead of him. We're promoting on seniority. We're not doing that. So Teddy takes Pershing and sends him to Japan for 8 months or 10 months or something to observe the Russo-Japanese War. He's over there for that time. He comes back. Teddy promotes him to a general over 862 other officers. It's just really odd, right? Like, why would you stake your claim or stake your reputation on doing something that is, I mean, people would say that's presidential meddling. Yeah. Well, is it? I mean, so
everything's meddling. It's heavy meddling. Heavy metal.
Well, then you go and you start looking at Teddy Roosevelt. His 7 generations prior, his ancestor Clays came from Holland,
The Netherlands,
and had a farm in Manhattan, New Amsterdam. You remember the Dutch were there first, right? So
the Dutch colonized the United States, not the British.
Yeah, we go back on the House of Orange and all this fun stuff, but just to talk about Teddy's family for a minute. And at this time, what Paul and I are thinking is that there were 2 factions of Zoids, 2 factions of people that run the world. Let's just call it that. And you had the control faction, the corruption faction, the Romans.
The Romans,
right? Going back to that Star Trek episode I described earlier. You had that, and then you had these people who had been part of those bloodlines, but were more good than bad people. These guys.
Yeah, we figured it was more Davidics.
Yeah,
more bloodline of Jesus kind of thing.
Right. So then you have this idea that, or you have this family, Roosevelt, fantastically wealthy. Like Teddy's grandfather and father were both huge philanthropists in New York.
They funded the Smithsonian, didn't they?
No, the Museum of Natural History in New York.
Okay.
The night at the museum. And by the way, that is so full of Q references. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
So we looked at that. We were thinking at the time that, okay, well, Teddy represented the money, the people that run the world, but they needed kinetic force. That's where Pershing comes in. Because if you look at the rise of John Pershing by the time World War I is done, he's given a 6 star. He's made general of the armies. The only person to ever be given that title while they're still alive.
Well,
He got it posthumously.
I think he was nominated for it, but it never passed. And
I want to say 1920 was when he was originally nominated for it. I could be wrong. Maybe it was after, but he was given that.
I can't remember.
So Pershing could have run for president in 1920. He was that popular, that well known, and most people know the name because of the Pershing tank or the Pershing missile, but they don't really know the story of John Pershing.
And can I throw this kind of turd in the punch bowl? This explains Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy. There's so much in Yellow Submarine in the movie. We did the episode with Kaidi. I think it was like a damn near 3-hour episode.
Yeah.
2 hours and 32
That's
minutes.
the last one I saw. In fact, I'm watching it over because there's so much in there that you guys uncovered. Like I have to just watch it again.
Yeah. Well, and some of it now with what we know, we've refined our view, and some of it we would go back and change. But it's just so many details to go through. Like, I don't want to be a historian that curates a bazillion details.
Yeah, it is crazy. But then so we end up looking at this thing from a Roosevelt Pershing kind of thing, and that the military had to have done something, had to have played a major role in this, because you have Pershing, and on Pershing's general staff and in his coaching tree, you have so many consequential Americans. I named a few of them already, but Truman being one of them. George Marshall was another one, who was probably the best logistics guy the Army's ever had. I mean, not only during the war, after the war, the Marshall Plan, rebuilding Europe, all that kind of stuff. So you have all of this happening under Pershing, kind of seemingly springing from this one guy, and we're like, there's something to this.
Yeah, you haven't even mentioned the PSYOPs growth, where you get McClure, who was on the general staff of Eisenhower in the European theater, and then he comes back, and he is the genesis of modern U.S. military PSYOPs.
Psychological operations.
I'm sorry, what was that person's name?
Robert McClure.
McClure, McClure.
Yeah, the original PSYOPs group.
That name from? I feel like. Okay, well, go ahead. No.
Well, there's all sorts of funny facts around this. Like Dr. Zeus was a PSYOPs guy.
Okay.
What was his name? I'm brain farting his name. Theodore Geisel. Look at the stuff that Theodore Geisel wrote. It's hilarious. And this is why, like on my Substack, sapioplex.substack.com, if you care to read it. I actually did a decomposition of Fox and Socks. It's a 62-page or 63-page tongue twister. It's a metaphorical script for what's going on. Like, this is all intentional psyops.
There is no way if you go through that book, read the article, you'll never look at it another way again. There's just too much in there.
It's impossible for it to be a coincidence.
So I have to ask you guys a question at this point. So how you have Yellow Submarine, and I want you to continue, John, but it's just I think this is how my head works. You have Yellow Submarine and you have Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, it's absurd.
How did you get there? Like the average person doesn't do that. You know what I'm saying? They just don't. No, you're not crazy. You're connecting unsuspecting dots and pulling them together. So I want to get some insight into your minds.
Okay, I'm about to really hurt your brain. So first of all, watch Ender's Game, the movie, and read the book, because the books are always different than the movies. Always.
Yes.
I have not found a movie that's the same as the book, and the differences between the two are important. They contain information. Like, for example, in 2001: A Space Odyssey, everybody knows they went to Jupiter, right? But in the book, they go to Saturn. And that's important. Because if you look at the mythological stuff about Saturn and Satanism and all that stuff, that's why it's relevant.
Right.
It's because it's all narratives. So here's the one that will really hurt your brain. Everybody's heard the song "You're So Vain" by Carly Simon. Yeah. Right? If you read the lyrics to that song, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. I try to figure that out sometimes.
Right. And they've actually promoted
coffee.
Right. They've promoted publicly how it doesn't make sense and nobody knows what it means. This is what John and I call Ender bait. And this is why I mentioned the game, or the movie Ender's Game. Ender is a perfectly balanced genius. Okay. He's neither good nor bad, but he's very focused on whatever the problem is, fix it. Right. And Ender can come up with all sorts of non-intuitive solutions that are brilliant. So you look at the song "You're So Vain." And if you really dig on that song and you look around, you will find a surname in Cambodia that is Sovan. It means the golden one. Colloquially, on the street, it's pronounced Sovain. And so if you are an Ender and you are the golden one, and you look at the lyrics of that song, you actually do realize that the song is about you. And then all of the lyrics in the song make perfect sense.
And to maybe more directly answer your question, Elisa, that wasn't it. That was necessary. But we started. Paul found the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. Read the lyrics and watch the video. Then there's a Substack article on it.
But don't believe what the musicians say in their interviews. They're lying.
No.
Well, yeah, I don't think a genius.
None of the artists tell the truth about like all the Led Zeppelin interviews where they talk about the origins of their songs. Bullshit. John and I can tell you exactly what those songs mean. It's not what they say.
The symbolism and all that stuff. We talked about bird language, also known as the green language, the language of Mesopotamia. That's a thing. You can actually look that up. Look up the green language or Google the bird language. It's a known thing.
Most of the information you'll find on the bird language, the green language, the language is bullshit. But that's why I wrote the bird language article on the Substack, is because I've never seen anybody explain like, oh, here's how you do it. And because it's weird. It's steganography. Steganography is hiding information in other information. And that's what the bird language is. And this isn't just like one movie, The Yellow Submarine or Ender's Game. It's all of it. All of the popularized media has the same shit in it. It's everywhere. This makes Q look like nothing.
The more you looked, the more it all connected. For
the last 2 years, John and I have been trying to defeat this theory, and so we keep looking at more and more stuff, and everything we found verified the theory.
The theory
it went the other way. Yeah, it just confirmed it over and over and over, so much so that John and I have just kind of stopped and said, yeah, it's everywhere.
I'm not looking anymore. Did we do a episode with Kaidi on different songs? I think we did.
Mm-hmm.
We picked out a number of songs.
Yeah, read the lyrics to an Ozzy Osbourne song called "Let It Die." Yeah. It's like a MAGA manifesto. and it was put out, I don't know, 20 years ago. It talks about what's going on right now.
Yeah.
How in the world did Ozzy Osbourne just magically hit all of these things precisely?
What's your theory on how he did?
Well, it's easy to predict the future when you control it.
So whoever the writers are giving it to these because then it gets out there into the
Exactly. Well, I think the intent is that the body. So for example, the horror genre almost didn't exist before the last 100 years. Okay, there are all sorts of things like the vampire narrative didn't exist before the early 1700s, really mid 1700s. And the whole vampire narrative is a metaphor for powerful people who run the world, basically. Okay. Every single attribute that you can find about vampires can be metaphorically mapped onto the Zoids.
Yeah. I think Rambo, there was a video out a couple of weeks ago that everyone was posting about a guy singing about what was going to happen in 2025. I think Rambo played it on his show and you were on there.
Sammy Hagar.
Sammy Hagar, A Crack in the World. We didn't even know about that one until he hit us with it, and we went, "Oh, yeah, there's another one."
Yeah,
it's crazy.
There's another song, "Me Wise Magic" by Van Halen. You know, David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar allegedly hated each other, but they both sang on that song.
Yeah, in like 2000 or 98, 99, 2000, something like that.
Yeah, and that song is the Zoids telling you that there they are. Don't you trust me?
So can we just dive into the Oh, sorry, Stu. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Rebel Life in the chat said, can you explain the Zoids?
That's what I was saying.
Please. So if we can...
I know.
You can explain the Zoids. Right?
So weird.
You've got as long as you like, but you can summarize it as much as you want.
We wrote an article on the Substack about it. Basically, if you look at the back of a $1 bill in the U.S., it's got an Illuminati pyramid with an eye on top, right? If you look closely at that pyramid, it's not a pyramid, it's a trapezoid. The top of the trapezoid is flat. The eye is a two-dimensional image.
Yeah.
The Zoids are the eye. The pyramid below them is a trap of the Zoids. It traps criminal behavior in crime organizations that they run. You have to let crime happen, so it's a honeypot. It attracts the criminals. Okay, and you make sure the criminals never get to the top. It's always your criminals that they're allowing a certain amount of damage to humanity to prevent extinction.
Yeah.
But who's they?
The Zoids.
Zoids.
No, I know.
We didn't have a name for them, so I just made that up.
Who are they? Like, I mean,
you'll never know.
This is pretty sophisticated. As much as I believe humans have the potential, we have consciousness, we're connected to source, all this stuff that I believe. I don't believe the average person can do all this. So who
we don't think so either.
So who are they? Are they extraterrestrials? Are they just higher density beings? You know, sixth, seventh, eighth.
They're just people.
They're just people.
Yeah, we think what happened, and this is in the Matrix Revealed article. It's the one at the top on the Substack. We believe what happened is in ancient Mesopotamia. You know, before ancient Mesopotamia, you have no civilization, right?
Right.
We believe a crime syndicate formed to just gain power because that's what alpha males do, and they gained massive success by faking all of the perceived positions. So kings and administrators and regulators, they controlled every position of influence, and they did it from behind the scenes. Okay, so the general population did not know that it was fake. Okay, so that way, if a ruler, let's say a king, falls out of favor with the people, they can just arrange a situation where the king is overthrown or his head gets cut off or whatever, and they put another one in, and then everybody's happy. Okay, so that's their formula of how they run their crime syndicate. Meanwhile, they're making money off of food and drugs and supplies and, you know, you name it, slavery. Anything bad that can happen, they're making tons of money off of it behind the scenes because they control all the major industries.
So what you're saying, if I could break this down, is that the Zoids formed, if you will, out of alpha male crime. And why are these alpha males criminals? Because
that's how you get power.
why do they want power? Like, I'm just trying to get to the whys. Like,
because guys want more adoration. They want more girls. They want more. They basically want to be able to tell.
Seed? I mean, essentially, like, for lack of a better, like.
No, it's males. Males try to get more powerful. That's just what they do.
Okay.
Right. So we think a crime syndicate formed, but they didn't anticipate genetics. So when they passed it on to their kids, at some number of generations afterwards, all the people who were involved at the very top were good people. And they looked at each other and said, we don't have to be assholes. The real problem, we have more money than anyone else. We can do anything we want. We should protect humanity, because if life disappears, none of this matters. And so they turned into a benevolent faction that was absolutely unopposed, because they had all of the power.
They had the power. Now, when did this shift, or I don't know what you want to call it, take place?
I think it's got to be around 5,500 or more years ago. We don't know how far it goes back, because you can't trust any of the history.
Right.
To me, I think it started as a crime syndicate way back then.
Yeah. At
some point in the last 2,000 years, certainly we think that the House of Orange, if you look at the Holy Grail stuff, it takes you through France and through Burgundy, and Burgundy goes up to Holland, the House of Orange, all of that stuff.
By the way, it's the House of Arrange. They arrange the world.
But then how do you explain so how do you explain then how good and evil comes into this? Because there are eyewitnesses and people who can attest to the satanic aspect of what's going on, and we're victims, and that.
Okay, so a certain percentage, like deductively, if these people control everything and they have their own families, there's a certain small percentage of the population that can't be trusted. They will tell you anything to your face to protect the system.
Okay.
So they can have eyewitnesses that will swear up and down that they've seen things, and those things may have never happened.
One thing to keep in mind is that you don't know anything for certain outside of the fact that I know I exist. Yeah. I can perceive you guys, so I assume you have to exist. That's a pretty high probability thing.
Yeah, we don't know that you're not AI, by the way.
Right, or you don't know that we are.
Right.
I mean, by my background going in and out, you don't even know if I've got any solidity.
Right.
No, but I'm saying, I don't know if you guys, but I know personally people who have had pretty awful stuff happen to them.
Did you see it?
Did I see it?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I could
attest you don't know.
To family members who
told you things.
Well,
you see what I'm saying? It's a really thorny problem.
I get you could go down this rabbit hole, but
right.
I'm saying that this is part of the problem, because if people are truly victimized,
right,
then they're not believed.
Right.
People say, I didn't see that.
Right. The reality of humanity.
What about people that are raped and trafficked and can't have children because they're damaged inside? How do you explain that?
Well, yeah,
I mean, bad things happen. Bad things happen. I don't think we're not saying that things that all bad things, none of that ever happened, and none of it's ever true.
Okay.
In fact, it often is.
Look, humanity's horrible in a lot of ways. You have people that are too stupid too stupid or don't have a conscience, and they'll willingly hurt their fellow man.
Yeah.
Or their children.
Or their children, right? I'm sure bad things have happened.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's happened on the scale that we're being told.
For example, we know, like you were talking about people who have side effects from drugs, but then there's also the numbers that are aggregated that we are told are the percentages of side effects. Those two don't have to agree.
I agree 100% with that. I mean, I'm just
So you may know, like I know someone who died a few days after getting a COVID vaccination. Okay. And then I see the numbers that are coming out for certain people are saying, oh, this many people have died from COVID vaccinations. I have no way to know if that's true.
Right.
Even though I saw someone who died. Now, the person I saw or that I know died was also morbidly obese.
Right. And you don't know if it was COVID shot.
Right.
You don't know if it was
Right.
from a
Right.
flu vaccine from 10
Right.
years, right? I mean, we could
Right.
go down that rabbit hole too.
So psychologically, what's important for managing the population is their perception.
Okay.
If let's say 80% of the population knows something knows someone who had a bad thing happen to them in the last few years, and you just hammer the narrative of, oh, the COVID vaccines are killing people, a certain percentage of the population will believe that's the cause with no proof.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, my mum had 2 jabs, 2 boosters, flu shot, cancer engulfed her body, and
Right.
2 months of chemo, and she was gone. Now, I'd never said to people the jabs killed her, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't prove it.
Right.
But
Right. Now, here's an even more unsettling and distasteful thought. Is it necessary to prevent extinction to allow a certain number of casualties?
This is the trolley problem.
Yeah.
That's a terrifying thought.
Repeat that statement again.
Is it necessary to allow and maybe even cause a certain number of casualties along the way
To save
to save humanity from extinction?
Well, I mean, I've even said this about Trump. If, Trump and his military alliance, we've had 4 to 6% loss forever. But if you've got a decision to make that you can either play this out slowly and save 95% of the people, or go in heavy at the start and lose 95% of the people, you've got a choice to make, and you're going to have collateral damage. You know you're going to lose a percentage of people.
Yes.
The analogy the best analogy I found for this is, imagine you're playing a game of chess, right? But your chess pieces are your family. Okay? You cannot win without allowing family members to die when you know they're going to die.
Yeah.
But if you try to prevent it, you will lose all of them. Both sides in this hypothetical situation are playing the same game.
Yeah.
Now, if you're the Zoids and you're playing against humanity itself, that's some terrifying trolley problems.
Yeah.
Here, let me give you a historical scenario, a hypothetical. Prior to World War I, the U.S. had our military was certainly not world beating. It probably would have been a very tough thing for the U.S. to have defended itself from attack. Now, notwithstanding the geographical stuff and how big the U.S. is and the oceans, but my point being that we had certainly, compared to after World War I, no military to speak of. So if the U.S. is going to become a superpower, if you're Teddy Roosevelt and John Pershing back in 1904, like, we've got to modernize this army. We have got to build up this army. How are we going to do it? Well, we need money. Okay, Federal Reserve Bank. Yeah, bad. It's bad, right? But
how would they do that?
Without the Fed, without fiat money, the U.S. would have never been able to build an army. Would have never been able to build the planes that it built, and really
without income tax.
Right. So the issue that I think a lot of people have at this point, they're like, well, yeah, but our great grandfathers died, and this, that, and the other thing. It's not about anyone individually. It's about the collective humanity saying, look, yeah, we're going to lose people. Like, for example, World War II. World War II, to me, when you look at the battlefield after, you have Germany has no ability to force project. Japan has zero ability to force project. They're hardly even able to get a boner now militarily. And then you have Russia, which took a major hit during the war. So
and Britain and France.
Right. So if you step back, for sure, Britain and France. But if you step back and you look at it, you squint your eyes and see the larger pattern. The only superpower really left standing at that point was the U.S. Yeah, Russia had a lot of men and stuff, but I'm not sure that. I think Russia's controlled.
If it was orchestrated, it set up America to be the only controlling faction of the world.
And the only country with a bottom-up constitution. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
The first one in history. Actually, I don't know if that's true.
Well, our Constitution's based, if you go back, on the Magna Carta and going back to England and a lot of what they put together.
Yeah, but the Constitution differs in that it starts from the premise of the government has no power, and the only power the government has is described in the Constitution, which I think that is unique.
I think
I
it
could be
is
wrong. Yeah.
So
It's an amazing coincidence, though.
So the trolley test stuff is to say, well, I mean, the way that I look at the history, and I could be totally wrong, but the way I look at it is I look at it and say, you know, the Federal Reserve, the net, is it a good or a bad thing? Well, a lot of people have suffered, but would we be where we're at right now without fiat money, without all this crazy ass inflation?
Yeah, it may not be possible to go through an industrial revolution and get to where we are now with deployed surveillance without tricking the population into just working their ass off for you and sucking their money away through inflation. Like,
Right.
We don't know. Like, what are the alternatives? Everybody says, "Oh, I could have done it better." Could you, or would 100 million people more have died?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. So what you're basically saying is that the droids,
Zoids.
sorry, I said droids.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, these are not the droids.
The Zoids are essentially very long-term thinking people.
Extremely, thousands of years.
Because you couldn't plan these things like for a lifetime.
The thing that'll lose us a lot of followers is when I look at the pattern going back with the House of Orange, and then you get the Spanish Inquisition before that, which, by the way, an outcome of the Spanish Inquisition was it chased all of the intelligent thinking people into Holland, because that was the only place where it was legal to practice science. Okay, so they took all of Europe and took all the smart people and put them in Holland. Well, I think that's the actual intent of the Spanish Inquisition. It had nothing to do with religion or any of that stuff. That's the excuse. Okay, when you go back and look at the pattern of how Christianity changed with Martin Luther and the progression of the House of Orange and the Davidic bloodline and what they were doing, and then the colonization of the New World, the United States, bottom-up constitution and all this stuff, it looks like it's all leading up to deployed surveillance to eliminate 99.9% of crime, which includes war, by the way. And when you go back to the start of all those moves that set up the United States, you get back to about 1,700 years ago in the 1300s, which is about 100 years after Genghis Khan. Mm-hmm. And it looks like that's where this plan was really, like, the push started. Here's the problem with that. It's impossible to plan this 700 years ago unless you already have wireless communication, supercomputers, computing, semiconductor technology. You can't plan to do this without high tech as we see it today.
But how do you know they didn't have it?
Exactly. I think they did.
Either they had it, or they knew that it would be possible. They wouldn't take risks like this. They would be risking humanity if they did that.
So do you see this as a planned massive sting operation to completely eradicate criminality from the planet, and potentially that's maybe
actually, I think it's bigger than that. I think it's to where nobody has to work anymore, and we get more freedom than we've ever had before, and they unleash unbelievable technologies, and we go colonize other planets, because you can't do that under the old capitalistic system. Yeah.
Well, we hear there is 6,000 hidden patents, but do we know that? That's what we hear. But there's, the sealed indictments are up to 629,000 now.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, are all the bad guys acting?
Right. Yeah.
Because if the public will only believe a good guy, bad guy show, then that explains, like, look at the Ian Fleming stories of James Bond, right? I believe that's the first time a supervillain appears in literature.
Really?
Oh.
Can you think of an earlier one? I mean, maybe there is one. I'm not claiming to be authoritative.
Supervillain? No.
Yeah.
Bad guys,
Right.
villains, yes.
Right. So that's like late 50s. Wait a minute, a super villain?
Super villain like Spectre, like a worldwide organization with tentacles everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, the Hydra, right?
Right.
Now, isn't it interesting that we're where we are today, and only 70 years ago, the narrative of a super bad guy appears for the first time in history, where we're about to take out the super bad guy. Everybody's grown up knowing about the James Bond movies. Is that why the James Bond movies are there? Was to familiarize us with the notion so that we're not surprised when it happens in real life. If
and
you
then,
were,
of course, that's gone on, right? Because then you have
Right.
Marvel and
right, all the comic book stuff. When you go back through all the media, all of these narratives have been very carefully placed in time,
Yeah.
so that everybody's familiar with them and it doesn't surprise them because they don't notice. When you're a magician manipulating the audience, sorry, you have to understand their psychology and how it works, and you have to set up your story so that they just don't realize you're doing different stuff than what they see. That appears to be exactly what's going on.
Well, I heard you say the other day as well, didn't you, that Eyes Wide Shut was filmed at a Rothschild mansion?
How convenient.
Yeah. In what world would that happen?
Exactly.
In what reality would that happen? In what reality, let me ask you this, in what reality would a dress with a presidential spooge on it ever get out of the White House?
Yeah. Exactly. That story would never get out of that room.
Right.
But it did. Which, by the way, look at the Denver International Airport with Lucifer, the giant 34-foot tall horse with photorealistic balls. I mean, like,
yeah,
with glowing red eyes. Oh, it's so satanic. And then they put all these horrible murals inside the airport.
Right.
It's there to get your attention, to make you go, what's going on? The world must be really corrupt.
Yeah.
So,
in what reality do you have a president married to a man named Big Mike?
Right.
Yeah.
It's so absurd. This absurdity keeps getting ratcheted up.
Right. Look at Biden during the 2020 campaign. Right. The first journalist to interview him was Cardi B, while her song WAP was at the top of the charts. You can't make this up. No presidential candidate would ever be seen in the same room with her.
Right.
But Biden, won after pulling that. That's impossible.
Think about this in terms of the movie The Matrix, right? They talk in the movie, there's like, oh yeah, a glitch in the Matrix. You notice something's off. This is what we're seeing, but we're seeing it with increasing frequency.
Yeah. So here's the overall hypothesis of this latest push that goes back about, I'd say, 150 years or so.
I'm going to take a bio break. Hang on, I'll be right back. I got to pee so bad.
All right. So what it appears to me to look like is that starting with, around the time of the Rothschild bankers, these
1700s ish.
Yes. Okay. Yes. They created the supervillains. The Rothschilds stood up and said, yeah, I'll do it. And they made them into super evil bankers that are satanic so that they can bring them down now. And the core reason behind it, and this is going to really hurt people's heads, is that in order to make the transition from everybody identifies money and wealth and jobs and with meaning, right? And you have to switch to a system where money and wealth and jobs is not tied to meaning. I mean, you might tie your meaning to what you prefer to do, but you don't have to work because robots will do everything for you. Okay. So here's the problem. If you tell everybody, oh, you won't have a job, they all flip out and think they're going to starve to death.
Yeah. Well, you won't have a vaccine. What about these lunatics that are going, oh, do you see all the kids that are getting sick because they're not getting the vaccines? You can't just flip. You can't just flip the narrative.
But see, you can't also just give everybody money because everybody thinks that economics works the way it does. And so if you just give everybody money, then the value of money goes to zero and everybody starves to death and starts killing each other. So you have to weave a story that is believable, that gives you an excuse to dump money on the population while you're making that transition. So you create boogeymen, and then you get them into court and make them pay the people back for all the bad things that the people know happened to them, right? How many boogeymen do we have lined up right now that are going to have to, that we're going to seize their assets, and everybody's going to get money. Everybody's going to get all their IRS money back. Everybody's going to get, you know, big pharma is going to be liquidated to pay back the population for all the damage they caused, right? Insurance companies are probably going to have to pay everybody back for all the money they stole. The big banks are going to have to pay everybody back for fraud. They've got all these cash injections lined up to dump money on the population while the transition's happening.
Starting with tariffs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, and what's funny with tariffs is, like, the economics of this doesn't even have to make sense because people don't think. They just believe whatever they're told by the news. Yeah. So if the news says, wow, we got more tariff revenue, they can do that in every single country. And everyone in every single country will think, oh, yeah, our country's doing great. But it's just numbers.
Well, exactly that. And we've discussed the fact that it might not even be the tariffs at all. It might be Trump's executive orders that is confiscating money under the guise of tariffs.
Yeah, we don't even know if any of the numbers balance for any of this.
Right.
Like we're told there's these balance sheets that line up. We don't know if any of that's accurate. All people know is I have a certain number of digits in my account, and when I go to the pub, I can buy a pint. You know?
So let
That's
me
how I equate money as well.
if this is, let's say, weaving so that we can do this transition, right, for lack of a better, when do you think the transition was planned? Was this, like, did they know
700 years ago?
So they knew we were going to go this way, this way, this way. This happens this time. Then we do this. Then we do that. And this is the ultimate goal,
right?
So that we can all be free and just live, as opposed to slave. Okay, so you're saying,
and one of the really distasteful things about this is, I think in the future, most of the population will just sit around and be unproductive.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. Look around. What do people want to do? People watch sports. People are not figuring out how to make propulsion systems that get us to other planets. You know, what percentage of the population is interested in solving a problem for space colonization? None.
Well, okay, but that doesn't mean that other people wouldn't want to be in service to others or help.
Well, right. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, the core goal is to do something that most of the population won't be interested in. So you still have to have a system in place that the rest of the population is happy, healthy, and suffers the least amount of harm. And so what they're doing is they're creating an amusement complex. Mm-hmm. This is why the last 50, 60 years, the amusement industries have exploded.
Video games especially. That's one of the biggest ones.
Video games are really useful on a colonization trip that takes a couple hundred years. Because you can just sit around and play video games all the time. You will be born and die on that spaceship.
You know what really sucked though? Year 100 on that, and you're like, okay, I've seen all of these same fucking films.
Well, no, because now there's an infinite amount of media. I mean, you can't watch all the movies that are out there. You can't do it.
And nor would I want to, though.
Yeah. Well, some people like I'm a very technical person. I prefer to solve technical problems. And so I'm the kind of guy who actually will try to figure out how to solve these problems for colonization. But I'm extremely rare in that regard. Right. And so what's going to happen in the future when you don't have to work is most of the population will just sit around and watch, sports ball and play trivia games and collect stamps and do gardening.
You know what, though? I actually think, to Elisa's point, that I think there are going to be, what you might spend a year screwing around playing Xbox, but there are going to be some percentage of those people that start out as potatoes that decide that they want to help their community. They want to help somebody else. Like, I got all this time and playing Xbox for 40 hours a week is really kind of boring.
It's played. And I also think the younger generation, even though they get a lot of shit because, they're on their phones and this and that, I do think they're more creative and more collaborative with one another. They're I don't know, maybe, John, I don't know if you've seen this with your daughter. They're kind of kinder than we were when we were younger. We were kind of brutal, growing up in the 70s and 80s and Mean Girls and all that kind of stuff. And I feel that they're more, I don't know. They just seem nicer in general. They're not as angry. Let me put it that way. We were freaking angry.
I think they'll be nicer because most of the adversity in humanity will have disappeared.
Could be. Like they say money's the root of all evil, but I think the lack of money is the root of all evil because it makes people do things that, would you go rob a store if you had enough money to feed your family? Probably not. And I'm making it very...
In the future, you won't, because you will get caught and it will be severe because there's never a reason to rob.
Right. But you know what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that when people don't have enough, that's what leads them to think about how to... When you have enough...
Yeah. In the future, it's going to be superabundance.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to get whatever the hell you want.
What do we do now? We get together with each other. We maybe start a garden. Maybe we help the little animals. Right. I don't know.
Yeah. No, people will do all of those things. But my point was, is that productive to further humanity, or is that just amusing people?
Well, you have to be nice to one another to want to be able to get to the point where you can create, to think in bigger or larger terms.
Maybe when people have got more time, they will find their creative sides. And some of them will turn into rocket scientists. And my point isn't that isn't going to happen. My point is, if you look at human behavior, most of the population is just going to be amused.
They've been taught to do that too. I mean, years ago, you had to get out in the field at 5 o'clock. Most of us that had farms or things like that. And now you don't have to do that.
Well, yeah, but today, most people still have to have a job.
Right.
In the future, that requirement won't even be there.
Yeah.
Like it's really difficult to get your head around what's going to happen with psychology. It's an enormous change. Enormous. And I don't see that there's a way around it. It's going to happen.
But what you're not taking into account is that new generations will be born into a new way of thinking.
No, I'm taking that into account.
Well, no, I'm saying like now, maybe the population right now, they sit around, they smoke pot, they watch a book. But as the new normal starts to happen, and more of this information is revealed a little bit more, because we're not just worrying about putting food on the table or working 40 hours a week. I think the new generation will start, to your point, to be thinking about these bigger issues, if you will.
Right.
Well, I think there'll be a new way of thinking when pretty much everyone realises that they've all been lied to. Because us four in here, we're problem solvers. This is why we're doing this. But most people still don't know they've been lied to. Some might be side-eyeing the situation, but they haven't got the courage to speak up about it. That middle percentage.
What's funny though is I think most of the population is going to believe the narrative that's being put out there, which is the big boogeyman did all these bad things. Trump came in there and was instrumental in a big part of making sure humanity brought down the big boogeyman. We all benefited. Wow, look how much better life got now that the boogeyman's gone. We should never allow the boogeyman again, so we're going to set the rules such that the boogeyman can never happen. But what's ironic about it is that the boogeyman was never there in the first place. It was all created so that people would accept what was happening to them.
I would say, Elisa, your point about this younger generation. I mean, Paul and I have talked about this at length. That I think there's going to be an age out, and Stu, you mentioned this, right? I think there'll be an age out of these people who maybe can't get out of the old rut, of the old way of thinking.
Yeah.
But kids that are born after whenever this is, they'll come up differently. And to your point too, Anna grew up listening to me say retard and fag all the time, so she has no problem with that. But the interesting thing I see about her is that she is much more aware of who she is at 20 years old than I was.
Oh my God, yeah. Now, is that because we encouraged this self-exploration? I mean, and combination, right? I mean, we tried to nurture that because we realized it wasn't just about getting a job and working. Like, you have to know yourself and all this other stuff. So, but they're ahead nonetheless.
Yes. Yeah. She's way further down the road than I was at her age. Like,
oh my gosh. Even the language. Like, she'll say to me, even the language they use, like, she'll be like, I was with this one and she got really triggered. I'm like, I don't even think I knew that word till I was like 50, like that you could get triggered. Like I knew I got crazy and mad and upset, but I didn't know to use the word like they're more, I don't know. You probably, it's when you have kids, you see these like little anomalies and you're like, wow, that's not how it rolled when I was younger. We would tell the person, get over it. You're an asshole.
Well, you're right. Anna said one time she used the term, I hate the term crash out. I hate it. I fucking hate it. And she used it for the first time. I remember this is probably 2 summers ago. Okay. And I go, why are you using that term? Well, look, somebody crashed out. You mean that they just lost control of their emotions? Is that what it is? They lost control of their emotion. And she's like, yeah. I said, then don't say crash out around me, please. Don't say that. That's stupid.
Oh gosh.
Slay.
Yeah. What's the other one? Chopped. I didn't know what chopped meant.
Yeah. I'm actually my girlfriend's kids are using all these terms, and so every time they say any of those terms, I just say moist, and it's driving them insane.
What does chop mean? I've never even.
It means like someone's like ugly or
screwed up.
Like, well, it's more like a physical from what I can gather, because I showed my daughter a picture and she's like, wow, that guy's really chopped.
Oh, Anna would say ratchet.
Ratchet's awesome.
Yeah, ratchet's a good word.
That's so funny. It is funny, though, some of these things. You got to have a sense of humor and laugh, too. Because we're talking about such serious stuff, right?
So, no predictions, no date fagging. How do you think this is all going to unfold in the coming months?
Slowly at first, and then very quickly.
Drip, 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 flood.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, look at the last 2 months of AI rhetoric. Explosive. Like I spent my entire life in the tech industry, and I was running circles around other big companies with what we were doing and always getting kicked in the face. Now I understand why. The tech industries were made to look slow. And now all of a sudden you have AI that's going to just change everything, and everybody will believe that that's organic. Okay. The AI was already there. It's like this whole thing's planned out by an enormous AI, I think. And what's going to happen, I think, not date fagging. I don't know when it's going to happen, but here's my thinking. This is like ripping off a Band-Aid. You want to do it as fast as you can, but there are physical limits in how fast you can make the change logistically. And there are limits in how fast you can morph the narratives so that people won't just flip out and start killing each other. Okay. Yeah. So there's a minimum time frame that's been determined for this, and there's a plan for how that's going to work. And I think it's going to go something like this. I could be wrong. I think what's going to happen is, as the corruption is unfolding, it's going to escalate, sort of like an Anchorman. Wow, that escalated quickly, right? It's just going to start to happen, and a money dumps are going to happen one after the other. Either court judgments, Supreme Court rules this, and Big Pharma has to pay $2 trillion to the whole population, and people just start getting checks through the government. Right. And now everybody's loaded. Okay. And then everybody loses their job because nobody wants to work. And so the companies are forced, in a period of maybe a couple of years even, to just automate everything. Okay. Right. So we can't find people to work in the factory, so we bought a bunch of robots. And then they think, well, now it costs us 10% to produce these products, so all the prices went down.
Right.
They're going to crash all the prices. Automation is going to go through the roof. Nobody's going to want to work, and everybody's going to be loaded all at the same time, while they're arresting big dirty bad guy in each different region and prosecuting him. And people find out that the corruption is actually 100 times worse than what the non's worst nightmare was. Right. So this shit has not yet begun.
Well, the more people wake up, as slow as it goes, the more people are going to be. It was a great clip from David Rambo where that Bria phone's in the show, and she said when the normies find out what's been going on, they're going to be cheering for Trump louder than we are. Once this tidal wave comes in.
Yeah. Everybody's going to say we were so close to all dying.
I've posited that maybe one of the mechanisms that they end up doing this. Because I think the Q narrative is going to be the cartoon narrative, and that I think we're going to see Trump declare the Insurrection Act. I think it might get slapped down by judicial stuff, and the Insurrection Act by itself is not enough to clear out the judicial corruption and all that stuff. So So I think somewhere along the line we're going to get the Insurrection Act stuff, but I think what really flips it is the whole election rigging thing. And Trump referred to it again yesterday.
Yes.
We have Maduro. We have the at least the proxy for the boogeyman in Venezuela and what they did. And if that shit comes out, it's going to be chaos, because I predict this. This is my date. Well, it's not a date fag, but it's just a predict fag. That
we made up a new term.
Yeah, I've never done that before. Seagrass.
Hey, we are predicts.
So get predict. Here's what I'm thinking, right? Somehow the election stuff comes out, and it'd be presented in a way that people would go, it'd be incontrovertible. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that's done over time, over months or weeks or whatever it might be. But let's say the culmination is Trump getting on doing My Fellow Americans. The elections are screwed up. They've been hackable, and we know they've been hacked. That means me too. I don't know if 2024 was rigged. I don't know if I'm a legitimate president. I sure as shit know that Congress isn't legit either. I'm therefore resigning. And
I could see that.
Yeah, right. And
it might be like a near-death experience, right? That they're always talking about.
That flips most Democrats to pro-Trump.
My wife.
And
I mentioned it to her, and she said, there's no way he'd resign. He's never going to give up power. I said, what if he did? She goes, that would change my opinion 180 degrees. That's when I'm like, oh, this is what they'll do. So okay. So now you have the
hell out of the right.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's going to flip out.
They're going to be like, yeah, daddy's gone.
Right.
They're all going to say what's going to happen, and they're all going to watch, which means their mind is totally open to whatever narrative comes into it.
Right. So the process I see happening is that the chiefs of all the military services get together and address the country and said, look, we're going to caretake, and we're going to do it for as minimal amount of time as possible. We need to get a POTUS in there. We don't have time we can't reconstitute Congress because somebody benefited from all this fraud. So we're going to elect a POTUS. Trump gets back in, landslide, and then he acts without a legislative branch. He might even act without a SCOTUS, because if you look at what Alexander Hamilton wrote, I've said this a million times, Federalist Paper 70, he's talking about executive power and what the founders intended. He said, every man the least conversant in the history of the Republic of Rome knows how often that republic was obliged to seek refuge in the power of a single man under the formidable title of dictator, against seditions of entire classes, against those who would aspire to tyranny, and against foreign invaders. So, but check. We got all three of those things. Trump could act as a dictator under Article 2. And can you imagine then that would be the storm? You have the investigations that show that both sides of Congress, both sides of the aisle, are totally corrupt.
With the support of 90% of the U.S. population.
The military would run that election, by the way. They would say, look, we don't even know that the state offices are legit. So we're going to run this under our rules. 1 day only, voter ID, paper ballot, show up to vote. And it'd be totally verifiable.
And all the candidates are basically perfect candidates to go in and raise hell. So where my mind goes when John says that about Federalist 70 is, was Federalist 70 written for this?
Could be. Somebody said, what about the rest of the world, rebel life? Yeah, well, Venezuela, the cartoon narrative says Smartmatic is in multiple countries.
I think
it's all over the world. Yeah, it's all over the world.
Yeah.
So the cure will spread worldwide.
If that happens, and US elections catalyst, every country, 72, 71 countries we've heard at the moment, it may be more, it finds out that all their elections have been stolen. Will you see a similar situation in each country, or is Trump actually the commander of the world in this military alliance operation, as some people suggested he may be?
I hadn't thought about specifics that way.
I think the different cultures need their different leaders. Like China needs Xi, Russia needs Putin, and there's going to be like the different cultures are different and their histories are different. People's perceptions are different. And so I think this is probably planned as a giant tapestry that all fits together. And it's all going to just unfold in a perfect way so that the minimum damage happens.
Well, it's very interesting because in yesterday's speech, he really drummed home this idea that the U.S. sets the trend for the rest of the world.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's going to watch and see
right.
what happens here, and then they can do it in their own. But I just want to ask you one more thing, Paul, before we go too far. So they have this election that the military kind of, oversees, if you will. Trump gets back in. And then what? Like in the short term?
I almost don't try to predict details like that because the whole thing
overall with the country, like what people you said
we're transitioning to where nobody needs a job. Everybody's going to be loaded, right?
After he comes back, so to speak.
At some point, yeah, probably. Yeah,
I don't see the abundance thing happening before we have justice. Right. I think the storm is the storm is going to be. Look, for the amount of time that if Trump says I'm a dictator, and there's a month in between then and when the military takes over to the time that Trump is reelected, how does that really change daily life? Because it doesn't change what the cops are doing. It doesn't change what the fire companies are doing. It doesn't change what the utilities are doing.
Yeah, all the infrastructure still works.
Right. None of the infrastructure takes direct daily input from an elected official. None of it.
Right.
So the military can take over. They don't have to have tanks on every corner. Of course, they'd have a rapid response. They talked about this. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is this is where I think the Law of War Manual will come in and be super relevant. Chapter 11, which is occupation of a belligerent country. And so it says in the Law of War Manual that the criminal justice system, such as it is in the belligerent country, should be allowed to operate insofar as it is not corrupt or doesn't pose a national security risk to the occupier, to the U.S. The other thing it says is that all media can be taken over by the occupying force.
Yeah, it says judges can be replaced by JAG officers too.
And did you know that the Law of War Manual, the first time that was ever put together in its form that we know it,
2014, they redid it or something?
It was 6 days before Trump came down the escalator.
Okay,
yeah.
So 15.
It's the first time they've ever put it in one place.
Yep.
Whoa, what a coincidence.
Wow.
Really?
So I want to point out that the hardest part of this overall transition, I think, is the logistics of making it look like the large corporations fully automate. I think that amount of time is going to be impossibly short because I think all the large companies are already geared up to do it.
Get little bits and pieces of this, like Amazon has these robots and this
right. And so in order to buttress the narrative, you've got Musk out there saying, well, once Optimus robots are built, they can just build more robots, so the cost goes to zero. And so I think we're going to see that happen, and just bazillions of robots are going to come out. And so, like, what does it cost to run the federal government when the whole thing is run by AI and robots?
Almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
Trump keeps saying, what is the percentage he says that we don't need all it. He's not getting detailed, but he's saying we don't need all this. We don't need all these people.
Yeah, I used to think they could cut it by 80 or 90%. Now I'm thinking 99.
Yeah.
By the way, who would be, Stu, who would you guys look to, do you think? Who is emergent that would lead Britain? I mean, because I'll tell you who I'd like. I like Katie Hopkins, man. She is such a fire.
I mean, Katie Hopkins used to be one of the most hated women in this country. She's on daytime television about 5-6 years ago, telling people that all these people that name their children after countries, I can't phrase exactly what she was saying, are just losers and stuff like that. She's got a daughter called India. And it was just some of the stuff she was saying was retarded, right? It was, she was just so in people's faces, but she is really, all the people that didn't like her are the ones that have really liked her. Sort of the truthers and the anons and the people standing up. she has really come through, and that even makes you think maybe she was playing a part to be like that, to be who she is now.
Yeah, look at Fetterman in the U.S. Like when he came on the scene, he was essentially retarded, and now he's the guy in the Democrat Party that's making the most sense.
Right.
I know, it's amazing. Look, I saw Trump bowl into Davos yesterday, and we all talk about whether that's a real Trump and dummy Marine One helicopters and these sorts of things, but all these Bilderberg meetings and everything like this has been shrouded in secrecy for years. But everything they've done of late, the WF, it's all been on the TV in front of our faces. Yeah. And, I was going, well, look, they've either got that's not the real Trump, right? And there's still a lot of danger about. Well, it is real Trump, and everyone now has capitulated, and they're just playing out this narrative.
Mm-hmm. I think we're in, like, I call it the slide into superabundance. We're in it now. In the last couple months, they've really pumped the AI stuff, and they're saying inside of 2026 we'll get AGI, general intelligence. At that point, AI is smarter than all of humanity combined.
It's funny too, like just thinking back, if you just remember these events, there was nobody there yesterday. There was like one soldier, like when he got off the helicopter. There's nobody, like, you hear noise at these things. You get papers rustle, people move. It was like a studio.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even know if any of that was filmed in Davos.
That's my point. Right. It was so, it just looked.
I mean, you got fucking James O'Keefe there, right, in one of the most ridiculous blonde wigs you've ever seen, infiltrating them. I mean, I could spot James O'Keefe in a crowd of 100 people here a mile off. And these people who he's infiltrated can't see him in a silly wig like that. I have no idea.
There's another attribute, another pattern you can see about the events. Whenever there's like a shooting or some controversial thing, or there's a hearing in Congress or something, there's always a bunch of absurd, contradictory crap about it. So you have 10 different narratives and people arguing over what's really true. And I think it's just a way to get people to chase their tails.
Yeah.
Because but it can be looked at as evidence that this is all a show, because in the real world, events would happen and it would just make sense because it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But in what we're seeing, that doesn't seem to be the case very often. It's always these impossible situations where there's 10 points of view and everybody argues over it. Did Trump actually get shot in the air? I don't know.
Right. We don't know.
Right. But everybody's arguing about it. And then you got Charlie Kirk, you got all these different events happening, the Pulse nightclub shooting, you've got all these school shootings where there's only 3 colors of cars in the parking lot. You say, well, what are the statistical odds of that happening? Well, it's impossible.
Well, so one of the things that I see is here in Minneapolis now with ICE is that my wife's, one of the people that helps us with her son, she is a teacher, and one of her coworkers, this is the story that was related. She's India, dots, not feathers, from India, her and her husband, and they were pulled over by ICE, and they were had to prove their identity and prove their citizenship, and they were harassed. And so my wife is like, yeah, that just doesn't seem right. I said, well, who told you? Steph told me. Okay, what do we know about these? We don't know anything about these people who were supposedly pulled over. But my point is, that narrative was reinforced yesterday by a police chief in Brooklyn Center, one of the suburbs, saying, oh yeah, well, I had an off-duty cop pulled over and that just isn't right. And I don't know if that's happening or not, if that's agitators dressed up like ICE, or if they're like, okay, we need you just to go out and pull over some random people and it'll be blatantly unconstitutional, but it'll get people to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a really good point.
Those ICE against the protesters clips we've seen, they don't make any sense. You've got ICE, if they've got weapons in their holsters, right, and they've got their backs and they're sort of just barging it makes no sense. It just looks like a comedy show.
I drove by the Whipple building, which is about 2 miles from here, on last Monday. and I drove right where the entrance is, where you see all the protesters on the one side and the ICE guys on the other. And there were some protesters. There was some jackass in a giraffe outfit. And but the thing that I did notice, there was
any frogs there.
No, I didn't see any frogs. Only one retard in a giraffe. Well, they're all retards, but there was maybe 20 protesters there, and they were all so it's a straight street. You turn left into ICE, you turn right, and there's another road. Well, they're all blocking that intersection, and I'm driving through, and I have a black SUV, and I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't be driving through here because some jackass might throw a battery at me. But there were like 4 or 5 news cameras, and when I drove through, the protesters were all behaving themselves on one side, and the ICE guys were way back. There was like nothing going on. So it's almost like, okay, we haven't said action yet. Ready? Okay, action. And that's when the protesters come out, the ICE come out, shoot their pepper balls.
Yeah, you only need 2 or 3 bad guys,
right,
to make it look really bad for a 30-second clip.
There's plenty of retards in this state. There's plenty of absolute retards that believe what they're hearing and seeing on TV and what their friends are saying. So I have no doubt that some of those protesters were just legitimate retards. But I think we're seeing
retards.
Forpog or other people out there that have infiltrated. Yeah, see, make retard great again. I say it all the time. And my son has special needs. Obviously, it doesn't. I'm not referring to him. I'm referring to people who should know better.
Please. My kids go like, you can't, that certain words, you can't say that. I was like, not only that I can say it because it's my right, but I'm going to say it. So
yeah. And retard has a classical meaning. It means slowed down.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a real meaning.
It's an accurate description of a lot of people.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway. My wife hates it when I say fag or faggy. Yeah. Anna will say something. She had a tranny in her high school class. And Anna was telling me, I didn't know my wife was around the corner, and it was like, yeah, got this tranny, and I go, well, what's its name? Well, it was a boy, now it's a girl, and the name is Cinnabar. I go, what is with these fucking fags? And my wife comes around the corner and she goes, why do you say that? I said, because it's gay.
It's true.
Wow. No, that is sad though. Like you were talking before about the collateral damage, so to speak, right? I mean, these ops or whatever you want to call them, it is sad. I mean,
it is.
People that have got caught up, these kids, like you see some of these kids now saying, what did I know at 11? What did I know at 12? Oh, these fucking idiot parents, which I know one, that the kid is like, 9 and wants to be a boy. Okay, I was a tomboy. Like, don't go cutting off my parts and giving me hormones. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
Now you have this daughter of hers who is like, has a beard and breasts. Like, it's a freak. And how do you allow this to happen? So there is this collateral damage.
Yep.
That's very sad in this whole thing, I
wanted to be a pirate when I was younger. I didn't cut my leg off and pull my eye out, did I?
There's a really disturbing philosophical underpinning to this that I think matters, and that is that beware of your own free will. And so the Zoids respect free will very, very highly, from what I can tell. And if they can trick you into doing something absolutely stupid that's useful for the rest of the population to see, if it was caused by your free will, that's your problem.
That's right.
They'll use it. Vampires, if you invite them in, they will burn you.
But the problem in these cases is that there was really no free will on the part of the kids. You're not mature enough to make these decisions. But
the thing is, the parent is supposed to be protecting the kid, and the parent
100%.
has the free will. So they're saying, well, if it's the parent's free will and they do that to their own kid, and it's useful, then it saves however many other people from having to go through whatever. And so we don't know what that calculus is because we don't see the overall plan. But it's very possible that there is a very beneficial calculus to allowing idiots to let their kids do these things, which is that's where the kind of the tragedy and the stomach turning for me happens. Is I look at humanity and I go, oh God,
Well,
you know, people are really dumb.
If you think about it another way, and this is, you have to go totally rational, no emotion in this critical thinking. In a way, maybe that's eugenics. Maybe that's soft eugenics, which is something that, oh, that's a bad word. We don't want to talk about that. But what if free will? Soft eugenics, meaning people opt out. And it's a tragedy.
You opt your kid out.
Right. But that's a fucking tragedy for sure. I'm just saying, look at this from potentially that sort of that perspective. Maybe it is. I wouldn't choose that. I wouldn't vote for that.
Yeah, maybe it's super important 50 or 100 years in the future to be able to look back in history and see how horrific this is, so that it will never happen again.
Yeah. And I don't think you have to go that far with some of this stuff. I think you could go out a couple of years and you see 10 years or a decade and say, what the fuck?
Well, if I'm correct about the transition to nobody needing a job, then what we're about to go through with this automation transition is, it just makes all the shit we're going through look tame psychologically, at least. So people will flip their shit psychologically when they realize what's going on. But most people won't realize what's going on until they're already taken care of.
Yeah. Good point.
And I think that's the goal of the operation, is to make it as painless as possible and have as little carnage as possible through the process.
I mean, a lot of these things we see as well, whether we talk about who's done it, are the good guys doing that, the bad guys doing that, it's still steering this awakening in the same direction, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would say if you're still thinking good guy or bad guy, you're missing the point.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Yeah.
There's the shepherds and the sheep.
Yeah.
Rambo just said that Scotty Martin passed away. Oof.
Well, that's not good.
Heart failure. Oh, man. Oh, that sucks.
Wow.
Jesus, I don't know how to say that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
How old was he?
I have no idea. Yeah, I saw his video yesterday, The End by The Doors. What?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that sucks.
The end.
Wow.
Sorry to damn. I'm not sorry I said it. That's a real kick.
Did you guys know him?
I didn't know him. I just admired the hell out of his movies, his clips. Wow. He's no G, man. That's a kick in the balls right there. Jeez.
Well, that should make us do more and carry on.
Yeah.
Doing what we do.
100%.
Damn.
You know, we've all lost people in this fight for the truth.
Yeah, true.
You know, a lot of us don't even speak to many people anymore. We don't do the things we used to do. I was saying to Lisa the other day that, you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be part of everything. And the more awake you become and the more you don't want to watch Hollywood films, you don't want to watch football anymore, you don't want to do these things, the more isolated you become, the more enlightened you sort of become and happy with your own
isolation.
Yes.
It's a crazy paradox. It's a crazy paradox because I was a guy who had a lot of friends and I loved going out with my buddies and hanging out and doing all kinds of stuff. And now I find myself, I'm isolated and I'm happier than I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my good friends. I mean, this guy for sure. But I have a smaller group of friends that are super high quality.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're really not isolated if you think about it, because we're all interacting like with people all over the country, all over the world who challenge and, you know, help us to open up even more to what we're thinking and how we view things and expand on stuff and share stuff. So in a weird way, we may be like physically, we're not going to bars, we're not going to clubs, we're not like going out to dinner all the time, but I mean, we're like what we do, we're talking to people all the time and interacting. And to me, that is very, I don't want to use the word tiring, but I am more tired doing this than like if I was going out to a club, because my mind is being used. You know what I'm saying? Like you're using a lot of energy.
There's some really, really weird psychological distortion that is going to happen when people don't have to work, because work ends up being an enormous distraction in people's lives, right? And so now you've got more time than you know what to do with, so you have to decide what to do with the time. But at the same time, you're capable of being connected with anybody in the world for free because of the internet, right? And so one of the things that I've been kind of chewing on mentally is the notion that this whole transition makes it very, very, very easy to ignore people you don't like, because like there are certain, you know, I have to confess, there are certain types of people that I just can't stand. They just make my stomach turn. But now you'll just be able to like not see them. You just don't have to interact with them at all. Don't go to the places they go. Don't talk to them. And that gets very, very, very easy in the future. So what does that look like, though, when you look at the composite of the entire population? You're going to have all these different psychological demographics, and all of them are ignoring each other, or some of them are ignoring each other, and it's just going to be a mess, right? But humanity's always been a mess. It's just going to be a mess that doesn't hurt itself.
Yeah.
Which is really strange.
But I mean, that was one of the beautiful things about COVID, is the fact that everyone found out who everyone was.
Yeah.
There was you didn't know before. You know, all your mates talk, go on fighting, all this sorts of stuff, and I'd do this and I'd do that. And some of the biggest, most powerful men, you know, were the first ones to put a mask on. Oh, stay in your house.
Yeah. Divorce does that too, by the way. You find out who your friends are.
What does?
Divorce.
Oh, yeah.
It was a joke.
Yeah, it's kind of the COVID was like a forced distillation.
Yes,
you know?
Totally.
Yeah, I think it has multiple purposes.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so for the viewers, that's a different point of view, isn't it? It's just.
But think about how many people, like we talk to them, you know, in our chat all the time, and they felt so really isolated, but now they have friends, and you know, you say, oh, it's not real, it's not in real life. Is it? You're sharing, you're talking, you're supporting one another,
reality is what people choose it to be.
Exactly.
And now I don't mean that literally. Like there is a physics and there is a universe, and it doesn't care what your opinion is. But inside of people's heads, they're going to see the reality that they think is real, and that's why I was talking about all those different demographic pockets. Each demographic pocket is most likely to be just completely wrong about a bunch of stuff. They won't care because they'll think they're right. And other people who disagree with them will just not interact with them because there's no point in having an argument.
Very true.
Like so the only conflict will be policy, but we're going to have unprecedented freedom. Like as long as you're not hurting anybody, then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know if you guys ever watch Sebastian Maniscalco. He's a comedian. He comes out of Chicago, very Italian, the son of Sicilian immigrants, etc. But he does a skit where he talks about the internet, and he says, he says it a lot funnier than I'm going to say it, but he says like how there were all these people that were into weird shit, right? But we never knew about it because they were in their houses. Now you go on the internet and someone wants, I forgot the example he uses, but like now there's a group for these. Yeah. People, dressed up as a movie, I think he said.
Yeah, I think I've seen that clip. Have you ever heard the song "Welcome to the Internet"?
No.
Sure. It's hilarious. It's a comedian who did it, and it's just John. You've heard it, right?
I've heard it. I can't recall
Welcome to the internet, and it basically enumerates all these things you can find on the internet and how absurd it is. So,
It's very funny. It really is.
can I interest you in some women's feet?
Yeah, like weird stuff. Like don't tell me about that. Go enjoy it, but keep it to yourself. Oh wow. This was so great, guys. We'd love to have you on again and again. This conversation was so we just went so deep. Thank you.
Yeah. So what happens when you take the brakes off, right? Freewheeling.
Well, we did try and get as many subjects in there as we could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for anybody contemplating the theory we've come up with the Zoids, read sapioplex.substack.com, and feel free to punch holes in it. If you can find a problem with the theory where it doesn't work, let us know. We haven't been able to do that. Everything we've seen just confirms it.
It's actually sapioplex.substack.com.
Yeah. That'll work, I think.
Yeah.
Will that work?
You'll figure it out.
I'll cut and paste that off the internet.
Yeah, as long as you go to Substack, you could You could always do the search for Sapioplex.
Yeah, that'll get you there. Oh, I suppose that would get you there, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that works. However you find it.
Or don't.
Yeah. A lot of people I've noticed that, like, I've in person referred people to it and then talked to them afterwards just to get their genuine reactions to it and not just some comment over the internet where, I mean, we've had people say, "You're retarded," blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. But people in person, it seems like the biggest impediment is emotional attachments to existing beliefs.
Yes.
So they really want to believe like the Masons are satanic and they're responsible for everything. And they can't get their head around the notion that their perception of the Masons has been intentionally twisted to cause that emotional reaation.
Yes.
Right.
And if our theory is correct, yes. Right?
Yeah.
It's still allowing for, I mean, we could be wrong. We say that, like, don't just believe us. Take what we've said. If it makes sense to you, great. If it doesn't, if some of it does, fine. Or just ignore us.
Yeah. Think about it. And if you come to a different conclusion, if we're right and you come to a different conclusion, it doesn't matter.
Right. Right. Well, isn't it Charlie Freak who sort of takes that position a lot?
Yeah,
he takes the anti-narrative that the Masons are good, that there's a benevolence and this, that, and the other thing, which goes against a lot of what is floating out there now, right?
Yep.
When you look at the different spectrum of people who are pundits, like you have the Charlie Wards, you've got Simon Parks, you've got Phil Godlewski, you've got General Flynn, you've got all these different people that are appearing all over the place all the time. There's a pundit for every demographic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a person who says what every different psychological mindset wants to hear. So
we were talking about that yesterday with that Julie Green coming out saying J.D. Vance is a white wolf and all these things. We were saying exactly that. The fact that Julie Green has an audience.
Right. It's also plausibly deniable under a capitalistic worldview because people would say, well, of course there is, because people are going to find a market to service it. So it's totally explainable. And so then people just go, oh, well, yeah, that's natural. Is it? Right. Everything they do is plausibly deniable.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Stu, could you put Aaron Pauling's comment up on the screen? I love it. I've been following these two for over a year now since I saw them on Rambo and Friends, and I personally think that JF Anon and Sapioplex are the smartest retards I've ever seen.
Boy, that's too. I don't know about smartest. I guess smartest retard.
A little bit of an oxymoron, but I love it.
Hey, man, if you win, even if it's the Special Olympics, at least you got an award.
You get a medal.
Yeah, that's brilliant. There's been some great comments in there today. I haven't really paid attention to any of them because I wanted to pay attention to you two guys, but that's been amazing. Like I say, if you want to come on again, that would be absolutely wonderful. Maybe we could pick a couple of subjects and go into them a little bit more.
Sure.
The songs are really fun.
We're professional and perennial guests, so we don't do our own shows. We've been on Rambo. We're on Rambo every Friday. I think we're on tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I'll be watching that. And like I say, that's why I got your Substacks and put them in banners, because I knew you didn't do your own show and stuff, and I just wanted to put that on the screen for people. But yeah,
if people or your viewers have questions, make a list, because this subject matter is so vast, and John and I have done so much research for so many years, and we put it all together. It's almost impossible. Like, people say, well, just give me the short explanation. And there isn't one, because in order to believe any of it, you have to understand how all these different pieces fit together. And it's just a mind-bendingly huge amount of stuff. So,
yeah. Well, we've got a wonderful lady that follows us in the chat called Jenny, and she downloads all the chat for us all the time and sends it to me as an email. So I can go back through it. I mean, she doesn't do every show, but I think she's in there for this one. So I shall do that anyway. But yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Whatever you do, people, just always question the narrative. Yeah. That's all you got to do. Don't take anything anyone says for gospel.
Well, it's a natural, instinctive human response for most humans to just believe whatever they're told. Somebody walks into a bar, says, "Hey, a guy just got arrested around the corner." You just immediately believe that's true, because why would somebody lie about that?
Right.
But if their intention is to lie to you to get you to do something, like walk out the other door, then they would make that up just to get you to walk out the other door, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're in that situation, then all bets are off on what the common likelihood is. And that explains the matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
Well said.
Brilliant.
We will definitely have you guys back on. This was so amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if let me just, I always forget to do this. I'll never find it. Yeah, Patriots Across. Well,
Stu's the tech person. I'm sure you've figured that out already.
Yeah, we've had Elisa and I have been doing this for about 4 months now, and we were doing our own stuff before that. And I've had so many channels deleted. We're just trying to build this channel up again now. So this is the main one. Patriots Across the Pond on Rumble. If people want to like and subscribe to that, that would be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, hitting the like button really helps, because that ratio determines how high up on the leaderboard you get.
Yeah.
So hit the like button.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you guys. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Where we go, one we go all. And what have I put in the end? General Flynn's warfare video. I'll put some Q drops over it. But yeah, take care, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks again. God bless you.
See you later.
Thanks, guys.
We are in a war most people don't even see. It's not just bombs or bullets. It's information, technology, and control over what you believe. Every day, powerful forces shape the news you read and the thoughts you hold. This is 5th generation warfare. And whether you know it or not, you are already on the battlefield. The choice is yours. Remain unaware or recognize the fight and take a stand.
Running through the dark, nowhere left to hide. Battle lines are drawn, taste the smoke and fire.